Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome everyone to another live Kava session here on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. We're pretty excited for the show today. Today I'm Lone Rangering. Other co-hosts may join us, but for the sake of time and for the love of the work, we are moving forward. Hey, Brown Monk, welcome. Hey, Jason, what's up, my brother? Hopefully all is good with you, man. Are you still in Hawaii? Stick around and enjoy the show, Jason. All right. Well, we're pretty excited for today's show. We're going to start off with some sports updates and have some discussions on that. So that's kind of like where we're looking to start. The first one we're going to start with and just have a general discussion on, let me see if I can find that video here relatively quickly. And that is the recent performance of the All Blacks. It's we've been having some conversations about this for a while. The New Zealand Rugby Union, for being from a small state but a very influential union in rugby union, has a lot of say on the rules. In my perspective, I don't have the other co-hosts, but would love to hear the perspective of all the other listeners here. New Zealand has been pretty influential. I used to be an All Blacks fan. I grew up in Tonga, huge All Blacks fan. You know, Jonah Lomu coming through, hard not to be a little kid growing up in Tonga, loving the All Blacks, kind of getting carried away with Jonah Lomu and that whole thing right there. And eventually I became a disheartened and disenfranchised fan. Reluctantly, I guess, became a Wallaby fan. Really was driven by what I saw as, you know, improper use of power, I would say, by New Zealand. Hey, you could say that's biased, but that was kind of my perspective, with New Zealand kind of hemorrhaging talent away from the Pacific Island nations. So, you know, making rules that are made it difficult for Polynesian players to go play for Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, and, you know, bringing guys on, Pita Latini, bringing all these younger guys, just a whole bunch of young guys, Lawaki, making them play as All Blacks a year or two away from the World Cup. From my perspective, just to dump them before the World Cup and they were ineligible to go and play for other nations. You know, the most recent casualties from my perspective were Malakai Fekitoa, Laumape. We're also looking at Charles Piutau. So, you know, kind of became a disenfranchised fan. Hey, Tani. Yes, sir. It's painful. Been really painful. The Wallabies have not only struggled on the field, but socially and politically, they've been really a sorry show to watch. But hopefully they'll figure it out. As they say, you know, get woke, go broke, and they're definitely suffering through that. So that's something that they'll have to figure out. But with that being said, we're going to look through, hey, Slick Rick and Tui. I think that's Tui is probably Increased Fleas 2.0. So we don't pay too much attention to those type of individuals in the YouTube comments there. So we're going to start with the video here. It's an interview of the Argentinian team after their historic win over the All Blacks, and just going to have a quick discussion over this is kind of unprecedented ground. The All Blacks in the last couple of years have been pretty vulnerable. Don't look as dominant as they typically do. Granted, we understand that, you know, teams go through cycles up and down, but we're going to kind of give another perspective on what may be the pressures that New Zealand is now facing that typically in the past they weren't facing. And honestly, I think these are pressures that they were initially putting on Pacific nations, and now they're getting a little bit of that taste of that pressure from larger markets and larger countries that have much more of an allure to players and the mentality of players, especially the Polynesian talent pool. there's been a shift, and I don't know if it's because of multi-generational Polynesians in the islands of New Zealand and also in Australia, where there's the big shift in the perspectives on how to approach their rugby career. But we're going to go ahead and just listen to this interview real quick and have some comments after that.
39. This is my first time here, and in my whole life to win New Zealand. For that, it's so important for me and for the whole team. We work a lot. It's tough sometimes, and now this game for us is amazing. Now thinking, calm down. I want to win next week. That's the most important. 2 games in a row. We never did it, and we go for that.
Right. It's awesome. What a game to be a part of. Congratulations. Thoroughly well deserved. Go and enjoy it with your teammates.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So once again, I mean, this is a big deal for Argentina. Big win, historic win. And really now the question is now begging, now that they're going back, New Zealand is trying to court back Richie Mo'unga, who went to New Zealand. We're starting to see players leave New Zealand much, much younger, before New Zealand Rugby Union, from my perspective, could bully them, corner them, you know, kind of threaten them with the idea of, if you go overseas, you'll never be allowed to play with the All Blacks. You know, every kid in New Zealand grew up with that vision, with that dream. And in many ways, that was the money ticket. Once you became an All Black, that gave you the opportunity to go overseas and kind of cash out in many ways while you're being paid as an All Black as well, towards the sunset of your career. We're seeing younger talent leave early and earlier. I mean, another prime example is Charles Putau, right? He made a very conscious decision, and he's been interviewed multiple times online, and it was driven by financial opportunity, and that opportunity in regards to what he could give his family in regards to financial benefits. So New Zealand's going to continue to face that pressure. They're going to have to change their strategy. Don't know how long they can hold on to this dominance. It is quite clear that the Polynesian talent pool was one of the biggest, well, it probably is the biggest resource that New Zealand had, primarily for 2 things: their proximity to the Polynesian islands, and the fact that they had a relatively large economy and financial opportunity compared to players if they stayed back in Tonga, Fiji, or Samoa. And so now, with that leverage being limited, now I think we're starting to see the impact of that on the All Blacks. So we'll see. I don't know what New Zealand Rugby Union's going to have to do to try and, you know, limit that hemorrhaging. I think the pressure eventually will build up, and they will allow players to go overseas and still be part of the All Blacks. I really do see that, especially when you see the current team with Richie Mo'unga going so early, so young, while being the main fly half for the All Blacks. So kind of give some thoughts there. That's kind of the feedback. Very interesting to see this type of shifting of power going through New Zealand Rugby Union and for all intents and purposes throughout World Rugby. Got a quick comment here. I think someone said New Zealand All Blacks without Pollies is, and that's, well, and what makes that interesting, Brown Monk, is just look at England, France, Romania, Ireland. They're inserting Polynesians throughout their teams, right? And that's really what's going on right now. It is no longer, and look at Japan. Japan has the same thing. You know, almost half of the Japanese national team is Polynesian, and they had the huge upset against the Springboks the last World Cup. And so this is no longer the big secret that New Zealand had control over. These larger markets are now taking these kids at a younger age, bringing them not just, you know, post high school, but bringing them over in high school and into college and giving them opportunities overseas. So I think New Zealand's going to have to come to a big come to Jesus kind of moment and figure out what they're going to do if they want to stay relevant. Gentile nation using our talent no more. Well, and that's the thing. That's going to be one thing. That's a good transition right there, Brown Monk, because what we have coming up is rugby league. Hey, Kurt, welcome to the digital kava session today. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find the right here. Let's bring this up. Let's bring this up and take a look. So what we're looking at here is rugby leagues around the corner. This will also put more pressure on New Zealand Rugby League. I mean, rugby union is talent coming not only from within New Zealand, because the New Zealand Warriors are kind of like a phenomenon over there in New Zealand with the impact that they're having. So that's kind of interesting. It's kind of a global movement there, but also just talent from Tonga, Samoa, and Fiji. The NRL is very attractive. And so that's something that's going to get more eyeballs, more attention from the younger talent. Probably going to see a lot more younger kids who played union growing up will consider rugby league, and especially with the Matema'a Tonga, the Toa Samoa, their like significant rise in the last two World Cups in beating tier 1 nations, both Tonga and Samoa being highly ranked in the rugby league world rankings, and then looking at, rugby league internationals off the charts here. I mean, let's look here. On the men's Pacific Cup, you got Australia, New Zealand, and Tonga, right? That is huge. Tell me any Polynesian that's going to be super excited to go watch the rugby league internationals, right? We got the Pacific Cup. You got Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Japan. You put that up versus the rugby league internationals, I don't think you're going to get a lot of eyeballs compared to the eyeballs you're going to get by the men's Pacific Cup here with Australia, New Zealand, and Tonga. You also have the Pacific Bowl, Cook Islands, Fiji, and PNG. Those are going to be high caliber games as well. Fiji and PNG and the Cook Islands perform well on the international level. So those are going to be highly competitive. Samoa Rugby League is going to be touring England. And as we spoke about a week or so ago, Jerome Luai committed to this tour. So that's going to be pretty exciting to see what Samoa will do over there. So that's going to be interesting. So that's going to be an interesting thing. We'll see how Samoa does there. As Tui here mentioned, Matema'a Tonga had a tough go at it. So we'll see how Samoa does. They'll have their turn to explore that as well. Hey, Teke Tonga, malo, appreciate it. We're going to go through just some sports updates here, some general discussion, and we're going to get into another study or two on ancient Polynesian history. So stick around for that. I think that'll be something you'll enjoy. Tui, 100% fair. We were hoping for a better outing as well, but it is what it is. So, yeah, I mean, we're really looking forward to it. And I'll tell you this, man, that let me see if we can find that schedule for the Matema'a Tonga game, because I'll tell you right now that is going to be jam-packed. I mean, at Mount Smart, let's see the exact date for that Mount Smart game. Let's see if we can pull that up here. Well, I don't see. I thought that would have pulled it up. I'm going to try and find the exact date for the Mate Tonga and the New Zealand. New Zealand game here. Well, the notes here are not lining up. Let's see here. Sweet. Yeah, we're excited for that as well, Teke. We're going to kind of go through that here in a little bit. Man, I may have lost. No, here it is. Found it. November 2nd. November 2nd at Mount Smart Stadium. It's going to be a big week. U.S. elections are going to be then. We are going to have a U.S. election segment. 100%. We're hoping. I'm a little bit worried. We might lose a couple of the Mate Tonga standards there. You know, Kotoni Stags kind of went towards a different direction with Australia on the last round on internationals. So not sure if he's going to be coming back. Would love to have him. David Fifita as well. Haven't heard direct commitments from him. But once again, you know, still going to have a great team. We still got a big roster outside of those two players that have some question marks. No, 100%. No disagreement there, Tui. Definitely need some halves, but that's where Katoa hopefully is developing. He's been doing really well with the Dolphins this year and seeing a big significant improvement there. Renegade, all right. I'm hopeful, man. I'm hopeful that he will come back. And I agree. That's you know, we're always cheering for the Polynesian guys, especially the Tongan players, to do well in the NRL season. But you know, there's always that fear if he does really well. He's had a decent year this year with the Broncos, but not quite off the charts as he has been in previous years. So I'm kind of hoping the same thing as well, Renegade, that you know, the Kangaroos take someone else, because it would be great to have Stags back running with us. You know, same thing with Fifita, David Fifita. You know, he didn't make the state of origin for Queensland, which I thought was kind of odd. You know, having someone with that size, speed, and strength would have been helpful. But so far, it seems like the New South Wales Blues were pretty happy with the fact David Fifita wasn't on the Queensland side, because they were able to snatch that win. So really exciting for this date right here, November 2nd at Mount Smart. I think that's going to be blockbuster. I think it's going to be sold out. It's going to be a Red Sea. There's going to be huge excitement talking about rugby league all over social media. The international game is going to be on fire. Also, really great to have these test match getting ready for Australia hosting the Rugby League World Cup. So really, really exciting to see that. That's interesting. I would love to see that as well, Renegade. Yeah, I'm hoping. I haven't seen anything specific on that confirming, but you know, if they hold that game in New Zealand like they did, I mean, Tonga's sweet spot just because of the density of the Tongan population in New Zealand, and you know, that whole phenomena started with the Tongan Mate Tonga experience. So it would be great to have another Australia Tonga game in New Zealand in Mount Smart. Pretty much Mount Smart is going to be the home base for the Mate Tonga. Yeah, Kotoni is a beast. I'm really hoping he comes back. That would be great. Samoa smashing news next week. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Samoa did great the last World Cup, but it would be great. Actually, that would be a great game too, would be to play Samoa, Mate Tonga, and the Toa Samoa. So we'll see how that goes. That's pretty much kind of the rugby league update there. We really think there's going to be some interesting opportunities there. Really excited for it. I think this is going to be, you know, really great for Rugby League International, really great for Polynesians in general. This is one of the reasons why I love Rugby League and the rules that they have. They make the international game much more exciting, and it really just brings in the Polynesian community and athletes and just makes it awesome. makes it awesome. Yep, 100%. Samoa is going to be pretty tough. They're pretty well, really where we were outmatched last time in the World Cup, we really didn't have halves. So that's going to make it pretty tough. No, that's for rugby union. Like I mentioned earlier, not going to get a lot of eyeballs. We couldn't even get in rugby union. We couldn't even beat the Queensland Reds, man. Historically tough Tongan players. We watched that video with Ma'afu, who ended up choosing going to Fiji. Don't blame him rather than Tonga, because why? Tonga said you got to pay for your own ticket, pay for your own accommodations, and maybe you'll make the team. Fiji calls him and says, we'll pay for your ticket, we'll pay for your accommodations, and you'll make the team. So unfortunately, Tonga on the Ikaretahi's got a lot to fix. 100% agree with that comment. Nililatu and that core group with Istolomaka. And looking at that core group right there, love to watch Lisona as well. Taumalolo, there was a good group that we had going there. Unfortunately, those guys have kind of, rightfully so, gone into the sunset. But yeah, Ikaletahi's got a long way, which is kind of crazy because we've gotten more individual talent, right? We got Israel Folau, we've got Charles Butau, Malakai Fekitoa, but unfortunately, the structure and the setup of Tonga Rugby Union has always been bad, historically bad, but it seems to have gone to a next level of disorganization from what it looks like. Hey, Polynesian Prince, welcome to the Kava session. Tonga facilities or no, and it's not just the facilities, Polynesian Prince. It's the leadership. I don't know how to fix that because we've gone through so many rounds of leadership changes, and we even see it a little bit in Tonga Rugby League, Tonga National Rugby League. We struggle with the non-field leadership. What I mean by that is coaches are typically tend to be good. The players and the staff, we struggle financially, but the core groups there seem to be okay. It's the leaders that are sitting on the boards overseeing the union. It's pretty bad when you go to the, Union Rugby World Cup and your players end up paying the hotel bill, because the Tonga Rugby Union leadership just took off. They partied at the World Cup, did all the nice things, took off, didn't pay the bill, and the Tongan players have to, unfortunately, it's kind of irritating, right? These guys put their careers on the line. There's a lot of money that's on the line for them personally. And then to just be kind of treated, the level of lack of gratitude for what these guys are willing to do for Tonga is kind of frustrating. I think last time we had an article that showed for, Jason Taumalolo, Andrew Fifita, who started this whole revolution in rugby league. The Samoan teams took after that example that was set. Those two guys lost over $500,000 just in fees if they, stayed with Australia or New Zealand. So these guys are given a lot of money, a lot of risk because injuries are real. You're one injury away from your career being over. So yeah. So hopefully we can come up with something there. It's just a little frustrating. All right. With that being said, we're going to transition to a kind of like, I don't know if it was an ad. If it was an ad that they had made for Bledisloe or New Zealand Rugby Union, but it's a Jonah Lomu ad. And there were some interesting things that kind of stuck out when I was looking at the ad and, thought it would be interesting to listen. Obviously, Jonah Lomu, by far, second place is not even on the same page. Jonah is by far the ultimate superstar for rugby union and maybe for rugby league as well. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to get to the level that Jonah was at right? He literally single-handedly saved rugby union, right? Rugby union was in the dumps, you know, trying to quote unquote stay amateur, tried to keep the, you know, the excuse was keep the spirit of the game, blah, blah, blah. Were forced because rugby league was professional, was dominant, giving a much better product, somewhat similar to what we're starting to see, that rugby league is separating itself again. But there's some interesting things here. I think there's some good things to kind of listen to. It's always great to reminisce on Jonah's time and just kind of walk through that.
Humble beginnings. I didn't grow up with the sense that this is where I was destined to be. I grew up looking at that black jersey.
Right there. We kind of mentioned it earlier. This describes 95% of Polynesian kids growing up, right? Tough circumstances, first, maybe even second generation into New Zealand, Australia, the US, Europe, Japan, just looking to the future with a dream, right? And for a lot of the kids growing up in New Zealand, that dream is that black jersey. And that can be a pro and a con. And we're kind of walk through the pros and the cons. You know, Jonah Lomu said no to a lot of money. It was confirmed the Dallas Cowboys offered Jonah Lomu a contract with the NFL to play tight end. Said no in an interview I saw because his love was rugby and the all black jersey. But that's millions of dollars decision right there. Pretty sure when he got older and he got sick, wonder if he ever thought, man, maybe I should have taken that, could have helped out my kids more. I don't know. I know I would be asking myself that question. So really, really kind of interesting. So kind of walk through that mentality with the you know, the all black being his target.
And knowing that where I was didn't matter because I could become something greater. My first day at Wesley College, the deputy headmaster pulled me aside and said, the first step before anyone else in the world believes it is that you have to believe it. He told me to trial for the first 15. I was the youngest player ever.
This is something that I think is really important. And I kind of learned this through my experience. I left Tonga at 15, went to, you know, Jason, one of my classmates that joined commented at the beginning of the show, went to St. Louis to play football there and to kind of explore and see what opportunities are there. I think this is something that's really important that Jonah brings up here. And that is all the raw talent is helpful, but you still need someone that believes in you, right? Jonah Lomu's ability, the raw talent, that's a no-brainer, right? We have a lot of kids with a lot of raw talent and for one reason or another don't achieve the fullness of their talent. And I would say a big reason behind that is they didn't have a mentor or a coach or some kind of leadership or guidance to help them go to a place that would invest in them. And that's something that I think a lot of our younger Polynesian athletes and Polynesian parents with your kids coming up, don't just, and I'm not trying to make it sound like we're ungrateful. To be ungrateful, that's one of the hallmarks of our culture, is to be humble and to be grateful. But that doesn't mean that you just accept whatever is given to you and say, or whatever falls in your way and say that that's good enough for me. Be thoughtful. Really pay attention and try to understand, number one, what your vision is, what the goal is, and then try to find the right people that invest in you. that deputy headmaster, his ability to recognize Jonah's talent, to encourage him to push the boundaries, to go and try out for first 15, even though he was very young and he ended up being the youngest member of the team, that started to set a precedence and a belief in him that would bleed over into his career as a professional and as an All Black. So really, that's something I think that's really important. We're starting to see Polynesian players just going into every aspect of the sports arena now, entertainment, music, but that regardless of what area the talent goes, they have to go somewhere that, one, believes in them, number two, is willing to invest in them. If Jonah didn't go to a school that was willing to say, hey, you know what, we're going to put you at the cutting edge, put you to the front, that is what will make a big difference. Mate Matonga really set the standard for the rest of the position. No, 100%. I think that someone had to, right? It's very different. It's very difficult for the first person, right? Until the first person does it, it's inertia. And same thing with breaking, the 4-minute mile. It was impossible for decades. Even scientists said it was impossible. Once the first person breaks the 4-minute mile, all of a sudden, all kinds of people are breaking, because it's that mental barrier. And I believe that the Mate Matonga guys did that. They broke that mental barrier. They showed that it was possible and that it could have a huge impact. And regardless of what anybody says, that team really was the one who set the standard. Really, really agree with that. Let's continue here.
To make the team. It wasn't the last team that I was the youngest ever.
Jonah Lomu, the youngest All Black ever. 19 years and 45 days old.
Let us look up, 1996.
Famous trophy at stake.
Don't ever turn your back on the All Black haka, son.
Jonah
Lomu. But even in the rain, the wind,
that try was really made by Jonah.
And the mud, when you've played the game of your life, it's the feeling of teamwork that you will remember.
And the All Blacks create a test record against Australia.
Later that year, it was my teammates who supported me. When I was diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome, the lowest point in my career, I wasn't just content with playing PlayStation. I wanted the real thing. I wanted to be an All Black again.
And this is the other thing that I think is interesting to keep in mind, and that's kind of the thread here I want to pull on, is what young Polynesian athletes can learn from Jonah Lomu's experience and what he kind of blazed the trail for everyone. You're going to run into difficulties. That's just a matter of life, whether it's injury, whether it's health, whether it's academic, whether it's social, familial challenges, financial challenges. That is just the nature of the beast of life, and be prepared for that, and be prepared for those things to really question, really push you to ask yourself, what do I want? And not to see those things as discouraging, not to see those things as, somehow the universe speaking to you that you shouldn't pursue what you really want to pursue, but it's to really ask you what you really want. And those can be used in a positive way. And Jonah did that exact same thing. Climbing to the peak, then to fall down. Sometimes it's discouraging. Even though you made it to the peak, there's still self-doubt. There's still concern. And you really have to almost work twice as hard. And that's what he went through with the kidney failure, and trying to earn a spot back on the team.
The talk has been about this man, Jonah Lomu.
I did that.
Now Lomu's in the clear.
And played in what is now known as the greatest game ever.
Tana's under the bar. Alatini, fantastic. Tana won't stop him either.
3 tries in the first 5 minutes.
This is a try fest.
The Wallabies on the comeback.
Looking wide, Bob wants it. Flank them.
This was a great game.
Can he make it? You betcha. You betcha.
People said that I'll never get a chance to play for the Bledisloe again.
Jonathan.
But the Bledisloe represents possibility.
What a game of rugby this has been.
Possibility. If we dream something.
Wilson. Oh!
If we picture something.
No stopping Jeff Wilson this time.
We can make it a reality.
Try for the Lobber Man.
And from that point on, people better get out of the way.
He's got 5 tackles.
I come from humble beginning.
That was a great commercial. Looks like it may have been a commercial for the Bledisloe Cup. Thought that was awesome. It's great to see Jonah's face again and just have that conversation and really, discuss of some lessons learned from Jonah's experience and, kind of just understand that that's a dream and an experience that our Polynesian youth are chasing every day. So that's pretty amazing to see. And with the international tests just around the corner for rugby union, and also getting ready for rugby league just being around the corner, thought that was kind of cool to kind of have those sports discussions to happen on the front end. With that being said, I do have one other sports discussion to have because it was pretty surprising to see, but it is a U.S. high school. Let me kind of double check my notes. Yes, looks like I should be able to find it here. Let me see. Where is this? Oh, right here. This is a pretty big deal. Because Corner Canyon beat IMG Academy. And here's the post that I saved here. People are always putting down Salt Lake High School football, that we ain't up to par with the rest of the nation. Well, ask the number 3 team in the country, IMG High School, just what they think of Utah Ballers now. They came as IMG, but we are jaw dropped saying OMG now. I mean, that is pretty big deal right there. Right? The question now begs is, what has led to the rise in Utah football? And I will say, does it have anything to do with the Polynesian population in Utah? There may be a big chance that that's the big impact there. A density of talent in that state. That's a big deal. We see that all over. We've talked about it in the past. Kahuku having such a huge impact on high school football from the North Shore, really isolated, no real cutting edge facilities. I know they updated their football field, but it was that red dust bowl, when you would go and visit it and look at what they're accomplishing. You look at Trinity out in the Euless, HEB area, what they're able to accomplish, what we're seeing in Utah. And there seems to be one common denominator: high density of population of Polynesians. So yeah, 100% Teke. It's kind of, that's what we're kind of seeing. So this is huge news for Utah football. That's a big win. Because IMG recruits top talent from across the nation. My daughter's quarterback here at her high school here in San Antonio just got recruited. He's leaving. He left last year, the high school here in San Antonio, and he transferred to IMG Academy. So That's a good question on that. I don't know. Here's Brown Monk. I didn't have time to pull it up to see how many Polynesians may be on that team. So I'm not sure if anyone here is from Utah, familiar with that team from Corner Canyon. Give us confirmation. Hey, I'd like to welcome our official PR rep for the digital kava sessions from the Polynesianized Water Bears. Malo, welcome. Looks like Corner Canyon, and this is the thing, Water Bears. We're probably going to see high schools do this on a consistent basis, especially with the NIL deals that are going on in college. That pressure is trickling down to the high school level, because now high school kids are understanding, if I can do a really good job, maximize my opportunity in high school, I could get millions of dollars while in college, and it's not that weight for the NFL. So that recruiting level is going to go up even further. So yeah, so we can kind of take a look at that. And if anyone can confirm if there are any Polynesians on that Corner Canyon team. All right. So we're going to go and see what we got out there. If it ain't the players, it's the coaches. Somebody probably is on that team being a factor. High probability, it's Utah. High density of Polynesians there. So I'd be shocked if there were no coaches or players, especially if they're recruiting, as Water Bears was mentioning earlier. All right, let's see here. We got some we got some funny ones. Let me see some funny videos here. Kind of US culture. I wanted to kind of share that with. All right. Let's put this full screen. Kind of looks like we got some confirmation here. Siliva said the running back Finau scored a touchdown. So that could be for sure right there. QB Helaman. Siri over here listening in to the conversation. Looks like the quarterback, Samoan kid, transferred from Timview. So yeah, definitely looks like some Polynesian talent sprinkled throughout that team. All right. So one of the things that wanted to we're going to do a little bit of 100% there, Teke. Really, really is cool to see that talent come together from both sides. We say both sides. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. Tongan, Samoan, same thing. But yeah, 100% agree that it's a lot of talent that Utah can leverage and make a statement on high school football. Mahalo. So we're going to, have a little bit of update on some politics here in the U.S. But before we kind of get into it, kind of show some of the mindset for some of our viewers outside of the U.S., kind of like the mindset and the culture here in the U.S. And this is an interesting video. I got a couple funny videos that kind of entertaining and kind of give some interesting perspective on the culture here in the U.S.
Starting off at the 10th position, we have Iraq with 30.
So this video is the largest number countdown on the top countries with most firearms per 100 people. And so this is the countdown, and we'll just kind of watch it and give a reaction to this and a couple other videos.
30 firearm per 100 people. Moving on to the 9th place, we have Iran with 31. Switzerland at number 8 with 32 firearms. Moving upwards at number 7, Uruguay with 32.5 per 100 people. Finland with 33 firearms secures its place in the 6th position. Reaching to the top 5, New Zealand at 5 with 30.
This one surprised me. I was surprised to see New Zealand in the top 5. You know, it was too bad Mr. Aotearoa is not here to react to that. So yeah, kind of interesting. I was kind of shocked. I was like, money, maybe I need to give New Zealand a little more props. Didn't realize that they would make the top 5. Maybe it's just all the mongrel mob. Oh, Yahweh.
4.5 firearms. Cyprus at the 4th place with 37 firearms. At 3rd place, it's Serbia with 38 firearms. At number 2, it's Republic of Yemen with staggering 55 firearms per 100 people. However, at the top of the list, it's the land of free liberty and democracy, the United States with 120 firearms per 100, making Americans the most armed people in the world. America! Starting off,
that was pretty funny, right? You know what? 145. Let's see what the 120 firearms per 100 people. So that's, I mean, that is ingrained in the culture. The other interesting thing is, the U.S. is like top 5 for, you know, violent firearm murders in the world. Oh, we have. Oh, Mr. Aotearoa. Welcome, welcome.
Is my mic working okay?
Yes, 100%. Welcome, welcome. Nice. How you doing?
Going good. Just came back from Rotorua. I've got some people, some family from Tonga, and just kind of taking them around, show them around New Zealand. So just came back from Rotorua, and yeah, happy to be here and join the what's left of the Polynesian podcast for this evening.
Hey, perfect timing, actually, Masi, because look who made the top 5. Let me change the view here so you can see it. Top 5 for most armed countries in the world per 100. And looks like some of the feedback here is, hey, the team is welcoming.
What's up? God loves you, Malo.
You know, I'm surprised that no one has given the extra cup threat here to Masi for showing up late, but maybe everybody's in a good mood today.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Malo. But it looks like let me see here. Looks like some of the comments here must, because I was really shocked to see New Zealand that high, but it looks like all the hunting that goes on.
That makes sense.
Is there a lot of hunting on North Island, or is it mostly on South Island, Masi?
No, both. There seems to be a good culture of people that go gaming, you know, hunting for wild boars, pigs, also rabbits is another big thing, and goats and deers. You know, so yeah, I'm not too shocked if that's if a lot of people are armed that way. Okay. But I know New Zealand was big into telling the people to turn in their weapons,
their guns, kind of like Australia, same thing, right? Government bought back a lot of the weapons. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. Obviously, number 1, right? He's United States of America, 100 and something arms, 120 firearms per 100 people. So yeah, kind of interesting. Hey, Juni Malo is a fellow Texan here, and I probably would agree, Juni, that Texas. Here, let me show this video. Let me show you this video, and this may not be a Texan, but it expresses the Texan perspective. What's kind of the attitude or the thought, Masi, of like guns in New Zealand? Do they just see it as like just horrific, terrible?
Yeah. I don't think they understand the purpose of why Americans need to have guns, in particular assault rifles. That's probably the big questions I come across with. But I always tell them it's I think it's because of our history, and it's a history of when you are a country that has fought for independence literally with your blood and life, and the forefathers are trying to reserve, because America was created of an idea, especially your individual freedom and freedom of to individually express your religion and whatsoever. The enemy could be the government, and most governments, if someone knows history, especially with Germany, Russia, even China now, and most other countries like with communism, Cuba, Venezuela, all these other countries, their number one priority is to ban guns, and that's how
Yeah.
they control you. So if you have a gun that is your let's just say your freedom between you, or the barrier of freedom and control over you. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the reason why most Americans are for gun rights, to the right to bear arms.
No, and to kind of go along with that, Masi, the interesting thing here is everybody talks about democracy, right? Everybody's all democracy. And they say, oh, America, the shining beacon.
Yeah.
America does not believe in quote unquote democracy, right? America believes in a republic. And there's a huge fundamental difference, right? And the fundamental difference is this: democracies can actually turn into tyranny very quickly, right? Where the majority can do whatever they want, or the government can do whatever it wants. So the fundamental difference between democracy and the republic is the government can't do whatever it wants, and the majority cannot do whatever it wants. It has the Constitution, and the Constitution limits the government, and since the people choose the government, it limits the majority from oppressing the minority. And so it looks to preserve the right of the individual. And so one of my favorite descriptions of a democracy is this: democracy is when 4 people are sitting at the table to decide what's for dinner, and 3 of them are wolves, and the 4th one is a lamb. When you got 3 wolves and a lamb sitting and talking about what we're going to have for dinner in a democracy, what do you think is going to happen? Everybody's going to be eating lamb chops. Yeah, the wolves are going to eat lamb chops. So there's a huge fundamental, it's a different type of mentality, and a way to think about freedom. And it's not to say that other freedoms are right or wrong or indifferent. It's just to say that this is, like you were mentioning, this is the foundation in which America was built on. So just like Polynesians have a unique perspective based off of our ancestors who set up a familial structure that has lasted for thousands of years, it stayed with us forever and ever. And so it's the same thing with the US, right? And here's a couple videos. Oh, go ahead, Masi, while I pull up this video.
Yeah. No, and I was going to say, I mean, right, the Polynesian, the greatest thing about the Polynesian is just the first people to stand on the island, and because Tonga is part of the Polynesian nation, was able to still be the dictators of their own sovereignty. So that's, to me, America is pretty remarkable, and also a miracle too of how it kind of started. But I think in the extent of Tonga being part of the Polynesian nation and never being colonized is a huge. I think it's a greater and more difficult to achieve, in my opinion, than what.
No, and that's actually an interesting point to make, Masi.
Yeah.
Because those are 2 different ways to kind of approach freedom, right? I mean, you look at the US, and it kind of bleeds over. I was in Europe. You could tell people once they kind of heard my American accent, they're kind of like standoffish a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's because America is the young gun, right? Yeah. The young country in Europe, having a couple thousand years in the Western civilization, and the US just comes out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And in the traditional sense, European were kings, and then the US comes out. Tonga, like you were mentioning, and Polynesia overall in general, is thousands of years of an empire and a culture that's kind of you know, developed it, progressed into its own version of freedom. So it's very interesting. But here's a couple of videos to kind of give the viewers around the world. Oh Yahweh, Kurt, why would you say that? We'll get some other.
Did Kamala just change her mind, Kurt? She said she's Tongan now. She's trying to grab some Tongan voters. I know she said she was black, and then she was Indian, and then now she's Tongan now. Oh wow, Maria Kamala.
Oh Yahweh. You know what was hilarious? I saw a joke that popped up that, you know, everything got so bad that even the US is now going to outsource their president to India. Pretty funny. Anyways, here's a funny video that kind of gives people an insight into kind of US gun culture. This one and one other one that we'll take a look at.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. Put him.
So his belt buckle, huh?
Yeah. And his little gun.
You know, like this is pretty hilarious. I thought this was pretty hilarious. You know, it's got 22 rounds in there. Oh, that's part of his belt buckle.
Let's see this thing fire. Oh,
not bad. It's a revolver.
America is a nation.
That's interesting. Is Texas? What's is it? Do you have to have like? Does it have to be concealed carry, or
you don't have to have a license to conceal carry in Texas.
Okay.
So a lot of states, if you do the concealed carry, you got to go get through the training. In Texas, you don't have to have a concealed carry license. And here in Texas, man, you go into somebody's house. I mean, I saw a video where a gentleman, it wasn't even his house, it was the neighbor's house that was being robbed.
Yeah.
And a guy, an older gentleman, came out with a shotgun, right? And killed the guys who robbed his neighbor. And one of them, he hurt them. And they tried to sue him. And in Texas, the neighbor is like, nope, he's fine. You know, he didn't go to court. He wasn't held liable. So yeah.
There was another story. I don't know if you heard about this one in Dallas in a condo apartment. And he was like a Hispanic American. Guys were pretending to knock on doors and saying that they needed to fix the AC, but they were just
robbing people.
Yes, they're robbing people, waiting people to open their doors to get it. And he just looked through the camera and said, no, I didn't order anybody to go fix my AC. Then all of a sudden, the guy started kicking the door. And then all of a sudden, they're kicking the door. He just went and grabbed his gun and started shooting through his door. And then those guys shot back too. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
and he was just saying, if he didn't have a gun, those guys would have broken my door and just robbed me in front of me and do whatever.
Yeah.
So
well, and that's just before you were jumping on, Masi, I was going to mention a statistic that I just saw the other day that, you know, America is like top 10 for murders, you know, violent crime resulting in death with guns. Mm-hmm. If you take out like Baltimore, Chicago, New York, you take out all these huge liberal cities, the U.S. is 189th in the world. Right.
LA,
and you take out all those, I think it was like 6 or 7 major cities that are all pretty much the strictest gun control. America drops from like top 5, top 10 to just under 200, number 200 in the world.
For the amount of guns that's available in America, right? You take away those cities. That's crazy. No, and those cities are run by Democrats.
Yes, that's Kamala Harris's neck of the woods, LA. You know, here's another funny video. Yeah, 100%, Shiliva, you're right. Those are the ones. Check. I just showed my wife a video on X. Pretty graphic, broad daylight, right? A guy riding on his bike. He comes by a car. The guy opens the car. The guy falls out. 3 guys come out of the car, masks on. They probably shot the guy at least 60 times.
Damn.
Laying on the ground, and then they drove off. Right? It's pretty rough. Here's the video that I wanted to. Here's another one that kind of gives some interesting insight. Let's pause it. Turn on the sound. Go full screen. Man, you know,
great.
I work in the solar industry and built some solar farms out there in West Texas. And, you know, one time you just see a helicopter flying out and all you see is like dust coming off the ground. Find out later it's just these rich oil guys in West Texas hog hunt, you know, shooting.
Yeah.
You know, there's a huge hog problem and billions of dollars. So, you know, can't kill enough of these hogs. They're having, you know, they're just breeding so quickly, flying around off of their private helicopter, you know, shooting these hogs. So
having some fun, huh?
Having some fun. I mean, it's kind of it's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of life. I mean, growing up in Tonga, I understand why people kind of get nervous around guns because we didn't grow up and see guns. You know, we had the 22, but even then that was kind of like, oh yeah, don't touch it. It's dangerous. But you know, you come to another country and then you just see, hey, it's a tool, you know, used correctly can be a lot of fun, can be very useful for protection. But also used incorrectly, just like any other tool, can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So no, that would be, I mean, dude, that would be interesting. You know, a lot of hogs out there. And I met people up in the panhandle of Texas when I was working on some wind projects up there. They catch these hogs and they say they're pretty decent to eat. You know, so you know, not the boars, but the sows and the younger ones. They make sausage out of them, and they say it's pretty decent. So yeah, just kind of thought that, and then we're gonna look into some other things. Big news. You hear about RFK, Masi?
I did hear that he was going to endorse Trump.
Yep.
Is that correct?
He did endorse Trump, and he did a little bit more than endorse today.
What did he do that's more significant than an endorsement?
Let's take a look, Masi. Walking up on stage in Arizona with Donald Trump at the rally.
Big deal. That is big deal.
Yep. Yeah, that is a big deal. I mean, that's pretty significant. Because the reality is, it was in Arizona, Teke, 100%, because it was probably more than likely they were, you know, RFK was probably taking people that would support Trump more than they would support Kamala. So that was a pretty big deal to have that. It's going to be a crazy election season here in the U.S. Uncle Donald having the showdown with crazy Kamala, anti-Kamala. So kind of interesting. This is an interesting take here from Brown Monk. Why Trump sound like the first beast from Revelation? Maybe some more clarification on that, Brown Monk. You know, we're open for all comments and thoughts. Here's Teke, big Trump follower since the presidential. I was, presidential run. I was more of a Ted Cruz guy. had my concerns with Donald Trump back in 2016, just because, a lot of rhinos out there. But he's been more conservative than anyone else I could think of. Where did you stand, Mussy, when Uncle Donald first showed up on the stage?
No, same as you. He wasn't my first take. I was probably leaning more towards Ted Cruz, but once Donald Trump was the nominee, supported him, and then ever since then been a strong supporter of Trump from then to 2020 and even up to now. And I don't know if another big deal too. I don't know if you saw. I saw one of my feeds come up that the Supreme Court of the United States also support that there should be a U.S. citizenship verification.
Proof of citizenship.
Proof. So that's a big deal for this upcoming election, because I'm a believer that there was a huge amount of fraud that was happening in 2020 that pulled ahead for Biden to win. And that, to me, that's why Biden was easily to be put, like, literally just tossed away like a rag doll. He wasn't considered.
Offer money.
Yeah.
Offer money, the most popular president of all time.
Yeah. Gets told to stand down and got pulled aside and let Kamala Harris be the nominee. She's never won another state or even in a federal election, and all of a sudden, she
not even a single vote, Mussy.
Yeah,
she didn't even get a single vote when she ran for president, the nominee for the Democrat Party, and even in this election cycle, it's really, really
it's crazy,
concerning.
Yes, and she's literally only had about 2.5 months to campaign and everything, and then the polls are trying to tell us, and the mainstream media are going to tell us that she's even or pulling ahead, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's some crazy stuff going on, folks. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense. Even the time frame of when you should be campaigning to even try to pull ahead or to Trump and even get even, you need to be campaigning much longer. But I don't know. Some crazy stuff is going on.
Something's going on. We'll see. Brown monk head wound that was healed. I think that was the horn, right? And it was healed. An interesting take. I haven't looked at it in that perspective. I know there's other people I've seen is the right ear being covered with blood is what Moses did to Aaron and anointing Aaron and also the Levites. So I guess you could go both ways, but that's an interesting take. The monastery, I do know the monastery knows their text. So interesting take there, Brown Monk. Teke here, flesh wound, heal fast. And with the medical care. Oh, yeah. Maria. Trump is the Antichrist. Okay, Mussy, this is another potential candidate for increased fleas. Not true. Not sure if that's true or not. I don't know. What's the name of the Mentaiteo character? I don't know if that's I forgot the name.
The Tuya Sosopo. I just know it was a Tuya Sosopo.
Okay, interesting. Interesting take.
Sosopo and Tui. Hey,
Yahweh, you might have hit it on the mark.
Malo lava Tui.
Malo Brown Monk. That's what we want. Different ideas, different perspective. I pick for money. Brown Monk. Brown Monk. If we all agree all the time, it's not fun. Yeah. Yahweh, potential candidate for Pulusipi. Not to be confused with the English Pulusipi, eh? All right. So yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting. Kind of funny. I did see a report that the DNC put a wall around their convention, and you had to show up with ID to get in. Kind of ironic, Don't you think that's a little weird? Yeah. You can just come into the country without you don't have to have a wall, without ID. And you don't need that to vote, but to get into the DNC convention, you have to have those things. And they put up a wall. I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of looking too much between the lines, but don't you think that's a little weird, Masi?
That is very weird, and that's a good saying of what's good for you is not what's good for me, and it's
Yeah,
that elite and that type of thinking that you think you know what's good for everyone else, but what's good for them is not good for you. So, hey, that's telling, man. That's telling. Then that is
yeah.
what the Democrat Party has been for a long time.
And to kind of fit that kind of like, we all don't have to agree on the same perspective of things, but we all gotta at least agree on what looks fishy, or something. But here's, how we talked about that, kind of doesn't make sense. What you say and how you behave are very different. Here's another example of, kind of like the wall for thee, but not for me. To your brother right here, Masi.
Kaepernick. Oh,
Does
bang,
this,
bang,
does this
bang, bang, Niner gang.
Oh yeah, wait. Where's we got any Cali bang bang Niner fans over there? I know we got some Cowboy fans. I know Junie and those guys are Cowboy fans here in Texas.
Oh, what? That's the rivalry that's been heating up lately.
Yeah.
San Francisco and Dallas.
Hey, I agree with Brown Monk, Masi. Looks like we have a visionary man with us. Tui had a vision. He's asking our monastery rep if he saw the vision too. And then I agree with Brown Monk. Share what you seen, Tui.
Yeah,
well, looks like Shiriva is a Niner gang, Marie.
Marie Shiriva.
And then Teke is a bang bang LA Rams.
Oh yeah,
Marie. Bang bang is going everywhere now. Anyways, this video to me was kind of funny because it shows sports and it kind of shows the backwards kind of thinking sometimes we see in how people, what they say versus their behavior, right? We're in a weird time right now where you can't just give someone the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion, with what they say, because everybody says crazy stuff. You just have to look at their outcome of their actions, and that tells you what they really believe, right? Like we talked about the DNC. They don't want to put up a wall for the border. They don't want to have ID to get into the country. They don't want to have ID to vote. But then they put up a wall and require ID to get into their convention.
Correct.
So I'm no longer listening to people and trying to understand, what they're saying is or isn't, right? Give them, I just look at the outcome of their actions and say, that's what you wanted. The outcome tells me what you really want, right? Yeah. And we're going to look at Homeboy here, and his actions versus what he said reveals what he really is about.
Before they put you on the field, teams poke, prod, and examine you, searching for any defect that might affect you.
Listen to the tone of voice. Oh, yeah, this is just terrible. This is just terrible. Listen to how they treated us.
No boundary respected. No dignity left intact.
The eyebrows.
Look at this. Mr. Farm, I got your bid. 30, James, 30 to you. 100. So, next one coming up, best one we got. 600.
So he's comparing the NFL to slavery.
Right? And he's making in particular the NFL draft are like the guys going through, right? They're kind of putting their bids on which guys they want.
Exactly.
Yeah, gotcha.
And granted, where slavery is not a good thing, but if you compare it to some silly thing like the draft, you're actually making it seem like it's slavery is not, you devalue the huge negative impact that slavery had on people's lives by trying to make that, equivalent to each other. Right there.
Look at this here. Come on, who wants this?
we're to work on some things, see if we can make.
So that was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And then this interview is just relatively recent on what Kaepernick wants to do now.
Get in there, but would love to be out there.
And will we see you play NFL again?
We're still training, still pushing. So hopefully we just got to get one of these team owners to open up.
What would it mean to you to play NFL again?
I mean, it's something I've trained my whole life for. So be able to step back on the field, I think that would be a major moment, major accomplishment for me. Also, I think it's something that I could bring a lot to a team and help them win a championship.
Huh. What's your thoughts, Masi?
Hey, man.
Seeing those two things.
My man Kaepernick is just trying to make wherever the money is coming at him, and he's willing to fold any other way to make it happen. So, poor guy, he's unfortunately he's going it on the wrong, he's going in the wrong sense of just, making it to slavery. And then all of a sudden, when there's an opportunity to make it to the NFL and then throw passes in front of managers and potential owners that might want to play, he's excited. So obviously, this is just what I see is this is a self enrichment that he's just trying to do for his own gain, and that's what he's doing. And yeah, if people want to pay and watch for it and fall for his kind of narrative when he likes to change, hey, that's on them. But that's kind of my feedback on that.
Yeah, right. See, this is what we're talking about. If you really believe the combine in the NFL is quote unquote slavery, why you want to go back? So which one is it? Is it that bad? Because if you really believe that they were just pound of flesh, treating people like animals, like he said, no dignity, no blah, 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 why are you wanting to go back? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because they provide the best nutrition technology. They provide the best facilities because they provide the best hotels where you travel away games and then home games. I mean, dude, he wants to be around that.
No, and some of the comments here, Cap trying to stay relevant. He does need to move on, right? When you say something's that bad, move on then. If it's worse. This is really what I think it comes down to, and I agree with Billy here. It was just about the money. Don't come and tell me, oh, you're some kind of hero and you're sacrificing yourself for the greater good. Dude, just tell the truth. Somebody was willing to pay you to behave that way, and that's what you did. Now, which one is the slavish behavior?
Yeah.
But it looks like, like Siriva here was saying, Harbaugh is looking to work something out with him. If not, hey, at XFL, maybe that.
Hey, Siriva's right. I mean, I think it was Alex Smith kind of playing for Harbaugh, and they're doing well. Alex Smith kind of got hurt, and Kaepernick had his opportunity, made it all the way to the Super Bowl, right? So, he did his time, and he had an ample amount of time opportunity even after that. Took him to the Super Bowl, just didn't stay on the field long enough, and it's just a cut and throat NFL. Next man up.
Right, I'm gonna look it up. I did see this picture. Gonna pull it up right now. Did you see this picture, Masi?
What of Cap with which boxer?
The one that was in the Olympics.
Oh yeah, wait.
I'm trying to find the picture that had them.
It can't be the Asian one because I know there was that. It must be that Algerian one.
Yes.
That tall, lengthy one.
Yeah. It actually looks pretty hilarious. I'm trying to find the video. They had them like right next to each other, but I can't find it. Dang it.
No worries.
No,
No, and that
I'm
boxer
gonna
is
ask
the one
Brock. I'm gonna ask Brock.
Okay.
No, but what were you saying, Masi? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that that boxer ended up taking gold, and that's so far off. Like, it's, man, I feel it must be sucked to be. You would think with the women these days will have more freedom in the 21st century with all the freedoms they have, but kind of feel bad for the women these days that who are blessed with opportunities to compete in sports and have a man that can jump in and just take gold from somebody else. But man, that's crazy. This is a crazy world we live in. That's crazy.
Come on, Grok. I don't need the verbals. I need the pictures.
Anything coming up?
No. Hey, if anyone has a picture of that, let us know. But I can't find it online. But it's hilarious. There's quite a bit of similarity in the face and everything.
The body build too, hey? Just like that lengthy, skinny.
Yeah. So pretty hilarious. You know, I was gonna do this in the reverse. We do have looking at the meeting notes here. I was gonna start with a study they did on what's called the Tongan Mound, Masi, in Tonga, and do a comparison here. But I think what may be helpful is to revisit one of our videos, and let me see here. Let me see if I can remember.
So I'm assuming this mound is in Fuamotu area, close to the airport. Is that what it is?
Yes. So there is the okay. So that is not it. 8-6. I'm trying to find the live. Do you remember what day we did the live on the Tuimanua mound?
Let me see. Is it that one with the locals? That one? That video?
No, the one with the professor.
Oh.
I found it. I think I found it.
Awesome.
Oh no, that's Tapu Tapu Atea one. You know what? Let's start with the article.
Okay.
Because we'll talk about that one first.
Just do it.
Let's go with share screen window. Where is it? All right. So we're going to talk about this first. So it's this window right here. I'm going to scroll to the top of this article. So this is a shout out to let's remove this comment real quick. This was sent our way. This is one of the reasons why I really appreciate Siriva Tarivakaola for sending this over for us to take a look at. This is the night gig, right? We don't have a ton of time to go and find. I signed up for articles to be sent on any type of academic studies in Polynesia to kind of come my way. So to kind of look at it, and I kind of skim through them whenever I have a chance. But this came from Siriva. So shout out to Siriva right here, Siriva Tarivakaola, for sending this over. Oh, you know what? After we do this, we'll look at a couple other videos. But this is a study done. It's titled Early Architecture in Tonga Implications for the Development of Polynesian Chiefdoms. So what this is looking at is what kind of structures and so forth, Malo, Siriva, what kind of understanding we can get by looking at structures and ruins and what indications that gives, especially for timeline, right? Yeah. A timeline on how Polynesia was settled, what type of communities were existing at the time. So that's what this article kind of covers and walks through. So we'll kind of just read through this and react kind of like how we've done on other ones. I'll read the first one, Masi, and we'll just take turns.
Okay.
All right. So this is kind of the layout of that the mound. It has like an exterior wall. Looks like this portion right here is like some kind of, defensive mechanism, possibly to kind of limit access, not coming straight on. So it's kind of interesting. So it says here, let's do this. Let's find where it's located in Tonga first. I think, let's see if we can find right there. So it's by the airport, right? So obviously it's in Tongatapu by the airport there. Let's see if we can find another one that covers it a little bit better. So it's right here. There's the airport, right? So there's Toloa. There's Toloa right there. Remember, we looked at that one study with the Australian National University. Right here, where they had the complex urbanization, right? So this is the airport, and this mound's right here.
Yeah.
So just kind of east of the airport. So that's where it's located, just for reference for the viewers. Let's go back to the dating. So I will remind kind of everyone that's listening in that we may pull up this video if people don't believe us, but we did have a review of a video where the Tu'imanua, the first Tu'imanua residence, was carbon dated, and they said it's only 500 years old, right? And this was the Manua residence of the first Tu'imanua on Ta'u Island, and they said it only lasted 500 years, and that's 500 years from today. So we're talking about 1500s, 1600s at best for the Tu'imanua Empire. So we've talked about that Toloa study, right? That pushed it back 700 years. And that was the third Tu'itonga settlement.
Correct.
So if we push that back 700 years, now Aho'eitu is in the BCs.
Yeah.
Off of Te Vita Fale's list, because on Te Vita Fale's list, it's 450 AD, right?
Correct.
Then we looked at Tu'itatui and Momo's mound next to the Ha'amonga, and they said that's 200 years. No, not the Ha'amonga one. Pai Telea, right?
Yeah.
Pai Telea is 200 years older than what they initially thought. We're going to look here that it looks like the complexity of the social, economic, and political structure in Tonga is much, much older than even anticipated. So that's the common thread, right? Every time we find these studies, it pushes back the Tu'itonga hundreds of years, and when you add them together, thousands of years back, right? And so, and yet when we go to the other side, for those who take the position that we come, originate out of Samoa, every time there's a study done in Samoa, it gets younger and younger.
Yeah, doesn't predate the Tu'itonga.
So here's a prime example. Here is a prime example, right? The Ha'amonga was built by Tu'imanua Fariselu. Okay. If we were to take that, the Tu'imanua is only 500 years old. It wouldn't even go all the way back. And there is some evidence being shared that the Ha'amonga was built thousands and thousands of years, possibly predating the Tu'itonga.
Correct.
So kind of difficult to take that, Tui. So it's interesting that's what your position is.
No, and that's why no, it's good. It's good. Like, these questions allow us, with the timeline, with these timelines of the structures, it allows us to answer these kind of questions. That's impossible.
Yes.
It's impossible because Tu'imanua did not exist. We can at least say that.
Yes.
So unless Tui, be awesome if you come up with some studies. I mean, if it's off of oral stories, right? That the timeline and the carbon dating will debunk those oral stories, because we know oral stories are just a data point, and it can contradict within other oral stories within the Pacific. So yeah, I mean, to me that doesn't make sense, right? So because based on the real evidence of the ruins, right? The ruins trump the
Oral history.
oral
Yeah.
history.
Yeah. And this is going to be a prime evidence right here. We're going to walk through this.
Yeah.
So it says here, durable architecture is a hallmark of Polynesian chiefdoms. And who has the highest amount of architecture and ruins? Density is Tonga Tapu, by far, right? We looked at that one study, over 10,000 mounds on Tonga Tapu alone that they can identify. And there's probably tens of thousands more associated with centralized control of residential and architectural land, agricultural land. Previous work in West Polynesia has indicated a relatively late date for the onset of such construction activity after AD 1000, suggesting that political development was influenced by events such as post-colonization migration. So basically, what this is saying is the majority of the studies that have been done in Western Polynesia, and everybody seems to agree, Western Polynesia is where Polynesia began, right? That the majority of those structures are after 1000 AD. And so what they're kind of saying is that is when the 90% of these structures are popping up are at 1000 AD. So the author reports new dating evidence from the excavation of a large mound, earth mound on the island of Tonga Tapu. Its construction 1,500 years ago indicates that, in contrast to previous findings, well-developed chiefdoms and field monuments probably dominated the landscapes of West Polynesia substantially prior to the colonization of more easterly island nations. So what I'm understanding from that is this mound is an indication of complexity, of unification of power, right? High agriculture structure, and that was established well before migration eastward, including Cook Islands, Hawaii, Tahiti, right? And that, yes. And Te Vita Whale's position is Tonga is where it started, right? That's where Tangaloa, that's where Maui and the Taulas first came from the Americas, established that level of stability on Tonga Tapu, and then expanded from there. Any thoughts or comments on that, Masi?
No, because I know there's been suggestions that if the origins of Polynesia came from the Americas, came to Tonga, people are saying, why did it skip many of those other islands? And to me, there's a reason why they chose Tonga. I think it could be because it was a place that was small enough, and the way Tonga Tapu is, especially how it's created, it kind of goes like this. It's easy to kind of navigate between east or west, and maybe it was a place that, for a variety of reasons, that it should be the center part of the Polynesian Empire. Starting from Tonga Tapu. So to me, there's a reason why they didn't stop on the other islands. They chose Tonga Tapu and then started there from Tonga Tapu to the other islands, to Upolu, Savaii, and then kind of to the eastern Polynesia.
Yeah. So basically, we're going to scroll down here, and this is kind of a figure that kind of explains it, right?
Okay.
They're kind of showing here, and granted, this is off of the Lapita perspective, right? Coming from Melanesia and Asia to Melanesia, then to Tonga and spreading. But the primary point of this is showing here in Western Polynesia is where the civilization was established before it moved eastward and even down to New Zealand, based off of the age of the structures in those areas. And so that is kind of what this thing is saying. It says map of the Pacific Ocean showing triangle Polynesia, dotted line, and colonization movements from West Polynesia, dashed line, to East Polynesia. Okay, between 700 and 1100 AD. Once again, this predates the Tu'imanua.
Yeah.
So it cannot be from Samoa because the
Yeah.
Tu'imanua is only 500 years old. And that's even before we get to this study on this mound. Right? This mound is going to go so far back, Tu'imanua has no chance. No chance of getting there.
No, interesting. And does this mound predate, like, what's, well, I think we'll go to it, but like, it'll be interesting to see the dates on this Malay Vagapuna mound compared to the dates that the other Langis have, you know, especially in Toloa and stuff. Or did it go that way? Because you know, it started from Tangaloa being that central part in Folaha and parts of Maufanga and stuff, and then goes to Toloa and then kind of goes to the eastern side. So I wonder if that's part of the timeline and it goes that way, or does this one predate those ones? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
No, I mean that's there's certain parts of that Masi that it'll walk through.
Okay.
Let me do this because I think this is important. I'm going to because here, let me kind of do this first, Masi. I want you to just kind of respond to this real quick, this question while I upload.
Okay.
I'm for you only, Tui, and nobody else. We're gonna convert this file again and look at it again. But kind of your response to that, Masi, while I work in the background for
so
this file.
Tui is asking, Tu'imanua is older than Tonga. Come on, Tua, your dad knows that. I think we'll re-clarified that, Tui, but I think like we mentioned, you gotta come up with some evidence that suggests that. I mean, unless you're going off of oral history, but like we kind of mentioned, oral history is not sufficient enough, because if we take everyone's oral history, then we have kind of no history. Everyone's confused. So obviously, that is a data point. Oral history gives us a story of why ruins are probably created, right? And at the moment, there's no ruins in Manua, Tui, unless some scientists have missed it or something, because the evidence that we've seen in Tui Manua suggests it's only 500 years of existence. So yeah, man, I mean, you got if there's something, you got to come up with some evidence, Tui, that maybe we're missing. We'll appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. Send a link, Tui. So far 99. If there was a percentage above 100%, this is what the evidence is, Masi.
Yeah.
This is the evidence. Oral history, like we mentioned, we understand oral history has its value. Once again, that mound, the one we're going to look at, was built by Tu'imanua Salafa. Right? That's interesting. But you know, we're going to take a look at that, and
let's do it.
Let's kind of, once this file converts over,
okay, then we're
gonna do that just for you, Tui. But we'll go through. Let's go through the next section here, and then once that video converts, read this part for us.
So this knowledge gap bridges the interval between the abandonment of ceramics and the appearance of vernacular and monumental architecture associated with traditional Polynesian societies, chiefdoms, and titles. The formative development stage in Tonga spanned 400 to 1200 AD, during which time it is hypothesized that the population on the main island of Tongatapu grew to a point where all available arable land was in use.
Okay. So what's interesting here is this in many ways fits Te Vita Fale's timeline, right? Aho Etu, 400 to 1200, though other studies say those are probably too late, right? Because the Toloa, which is the third Tu'i Tonga settlement, they're saying is 700 years earlier. But
Correct.
I think the point that this study is trying to make is, in order to build this mound, it took agriculture to the point where you could build a population and sophisticated structure, government and social, to allow building monuments of this size. Any thoughts on that, Masi?
No thoughts. I was just thinking of the question that Tui proposed to us. Another suggestion, Tui, if you could also start with a list of Tui Manua, because we already did an episode of that, and then hopefully you have an opportunity to come in, maybe join us and explain that list, and maybe associated exactly where you kind of came up with those lists, because we already have one person that came with the Tui Polotu list. It's pretty amazing, but we haven't. We've invited him multiple times to come and explain that list, but it hasn't happened because it seems like he's a very busy man with his time. But yeah,
Yes.
I mean that's another thing you can do to explain your stance on the Tui Banua.
Yeah. So we'll continue here, and then I think the video will probably be ready
Okay.
once this is done here. Yeah,
I
the video will be ready.
can read this one. I can read this
Yeah,
one.
read this one, Masi.
So this article reports on the excavation of Malae Vagapuna, a large earth mound on the main island of Tongatapu that was built around 1500 years ago, making it the oldest known example of Polynesian architecture. The
Masi,
size.
can you repeat that for Tui?
Okay,
I know
repeat it.
Tui wants evidence. He might miss it. Miss
Okay.
it, Masi. Can you just repeat that sentence again?
Let me say it one more time. Let me see one more time. A large earth mound on the main island of Tongatapu that was built around 1500 years ago, making it the oldest known example of Polynesian architecture.
Okay.
The
All right.
size and prominent location of the mound is consistent with construction for the control of land and demonstrates the existence of formative political structures as proposed by Burley and Clark centuries before the advent of the Tongan maritime state. Interesting.
Okay. So once again, 1500 years. We're, for the sake of our brothers Noah and Tui, we will rerun the video on looking at the Tui Manua site. But once again, this is 1500 years ago. And we're saying that, dude, it's probably even further than that. But even if we just take this 1500 years ago, that's Tui Tonga time. Tui Manua is only 500 years old. So I know.
Quick question,
go ahead, Masi.
Any burial or bodies that were found in this mound, or does it seem like it was just a structure built for maybe either for political purposes or religious? Do you know? Was there anything that kind of said anything about this mound? Because usually a mound is a residence,
yes,
place.
They found that it had a structure at the top of it.
Okay.
They don't know what the structure was and what the purpose of the structure is. So they know it had a structure on it. But this is the thing that we're talking about. Number one, we understand relatively, as it's accepted now from Western Polynesia, the Polynesian, we'll call it the civilization or nation, right? Started, it spreads east. Now, we're going to say where in West Polynesia, right? Correct. We're looking at the oldest structure in all of Polynesia on Tongatapu. And why is it significant? Some people cry, hey, why you guys hold on to your structures and your ruins? This is why. The size and prominent location of the mountain, consistent with construction for the control of land, demonstrates the existence of a formative political structure. That means there's a structural governing, right? So people are not just coming together. This is not subsistence. This is a organized political structure. And that's necessary in order to build an empire. You don't build an empire with subsistence farming, right? This is why we see on the other study that we saw, Samoa seemed to be mass producing stone axes. That was like the product that Samoa brought to the table, some of the mats and so forth. But the most durable product, and I don't know if there's another article I read, because I've read a lot of them. They found like workshops in Samoa, in some of these villages. They called them stone axe workshops, where they were just mass producing axes. Right? And that's why axes were kind of found throughout the empire. So that's the interesting. So once again, 1500 years. Let's do this for now. So here's another interesting thing. Look at all the roads, sunken roads. These are some of the mounds that they identified.
Yeah.
And look at all the roads that they have identified. So this is a pretty strong network of roads that they found. And who knows how many other roads they didn't find.
No, and I was just thinking of this is along Fale's also theory of Atap, Atap being at the bottom where we first sailed, then coming up to that place Hokula, right? Kind of like the
right
first
here
landing
in this
spot.
area.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised if that's the oldest structure. Maybe there were some meetings or something of how, I don't know. It's just interesting of how things were gonna be done, and then they kind of, how we kind of mentioned the Taulas go west, the Maui clan goes east, and then the central part of that area was where Tangaloa clan of governing. So it's I mean, I'm just kind of going
it fits
off
with and this is how you try and navigate the oral history, right? Because that's what Tongan oral history says. And when you see this stuff, you're like, oh, it seems to match. It seems to make sense, right? So we'll kind of skim through here. This is kind of like the LiDAR. This is digital Earth, Google Earth kind of view. I'm gonna just skip down, Masi, to the closing. Let me see here. They anticipate that the mound started around 300 AD, right? And finished around 500. And that's based off of, they found charcoal that was burned somewhere on the mound, and based off of those charcoal burns, and that was the lowest level within the mounds. And that's where they took their dating from. I'm going to do just a quick summary here, because I think it's important to address some of the comments that are being shared here. Okay. Now, for the size of the mounds found on Tongatapu, this mound is in the top 97th percentile for height and width compared to the Langis on Tongatapu. So it's a significant ruin, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the purpose behind that. And they are primarily just mapping these against La Paja, the mounds in La Paja. They're not taking into account the mounds in Toloa and Ha'amonga, and also in Maufanga, where Aho'eitu was. Nor are they taking into account Tangaloa's residence, right? So that's why I'm saying there's probably going to be older ruins that they haven't compared to. They're just primarily looking at La Paja, because those are the most recognized mounds.
Correct.
On Tongatapu. So right here, the age of the built structure is particularly important, as the development of specialized architecture is linked with the presence of complex chiefdoms, growing populations, and intensified forms of food production. Like we talked about, Masi, many times, to finance and to build the expansion, you have to have these things, and you have to have them early. And we're talking about as early as the 1500s. Here's another interesting one. Masi, if you could just read this one.
Okay, I will. In contrast, all substantial architecture in West Polynesia has been dated to after the first millennium AD. Monumental mounds faced with carbonate stone in Tonga are no longer than 1250 AD, and the first phase of the Puremere mound on Savaii was constructed in either 1000 between 1000 and 1400 AD or 1050 to 1250 AD. Genealogical reckoning indicates that large earth mounds on the island of Upolu date to the 17th century AD, while Samoan pigeon mounds were probably built in the 17th, 18th century AD. Oral traditions
Just right
suggest
there.
that.
Just
Okay.
right there for now, Masi.
Mm,
Well, well, well.
correct.
We do touch the mounds in Samoa, and they are nowhere near 300 AD, right? The earliest they'll give to the Pulemele Mound is 1000. And that is for the rest of Polynesia. Almost all of Polynesia is 1000 AD and later. And that includes, quote unquote, where all of Polynesia came from, the Tu'imanua. It's
Yeah.
not even before 1000 AD. Any comments on that, Masi?
Yeah. So from what I'm reading here, Tua, seems like Savaii, based on the ruin dating, is the oldest so far. Is that
Yeah.
in structure in the ruins? And that is very interesting because I would think Upolu would have older ruins based on dating, but it's good to have these dates because now we can say like seems like Savaii was a significant part of where the Tuitonga chose to kind of reside,
Reside.
maybe most of the time. Of course,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's pretty interesting, and yeah, looks like Tui Manua ruins is not mentioned in the the
No, they're
Samoan
not old enough.
archipelago.
It's only
They're not
like
old
that
enough.
other study is only 5, and we'll visit
Correct.
that, right? We'll
Yeah.
go back to the Tu'imanua, and this is what I don't understand. Why
The argument.
why
with
the arguments
Tuimanua.
there? I mean, there comes a point where you just gotta say, hey, look, the reality is that Tuitonga predates the Tu'imanua, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
It's not even close, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we'll get to the Tu'imanua ones earlier. So let's see. Evidence. So it suggests the existence of other early structures in Fiji, West Polynesia. Well, here's one of the things that says it's a lot more difficult to date the stone, right? And so all the stone dates are conservative, meaning they take the youngest date rather than the potential oldest date, which is why the more they dig into Tonga, the more they find out it's older and older and older. Because when they first start on the stones, they always take the more conservative dates.
Very interesting.
Right here. I'll read this one. Turning to the interpretation of the Mala'i Wakapuna, the Tongan archaeological sequence is marked by continuity and is potentially different to Samoa, where the arrival of new population has been linked with the late production of architecture. The complex chiefdom of the Tu'itonga dynasty in AD 11 to 1200 by incorporating regional chiefdoms. And once again, they're primarily looking at Tu'itatui and later.
Correct.
And we already know how far down the line Tu'itatui is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Incorporating regional chiefdoms across the archipelago under a paramount authority. And this is one of the things we talk about. How often can Samoa say, oh, we predate the Tu'itonga, when they can only look at maybe 3 times where they were under unified rule, and even then didn't even last very long. And even the one that they claim that had prominence over the entire group, the Tu'imanua, there's debates that the Tu'imanua never even really tried, besides one Tu'imanua who had some influence over the other Samoan islands. And yet you're looking at Tonga possibly thousands of years under unified, because that's what the Mala'i Wakapuna suggests. Tonga was under unified governance, structure, economic structure, and political structure for thousands of years.
Nice.
Any thoughts on that, Masi?
Quick question. When was this study done? Like, when was this you know, compiled and everything? Do you know if there's a date?
Yes, I'll just have to. I just printed it off from
Oh,
online.
no worries, no worries.
So no, I'll just scroll to the top and see what the date is. It's probably at the very top here.
Because yeah, I don't know why
Mhm.
this study is not being used. Because see, and this is the kind of study that we just like. We don't want people to interpret oral history that they think they understand and everything. Because we know,
Oh, here we
oh,
go. 2024.
that's why. Very new,
Yeah,
very new. So this is
fresh. This
very
is
new,
yes,
viewers. Breaking it
and
down.
this is all thank you to Siriva. You know, that's
Malo,
what's
Shiriba.
we really like our viewers. They know their stuff. They dig their stuff up and they shared it with us, right?
Yeah.
So, that's Yahweh. But the white man, Sole, almost every piece of evidence that I've been thrown my way from the Tu'imanua is stories written by a white man, recorded by a white man. So if we were to do that, let's be even, let's remove all of that, right? Tu'imanua is still not as old as the Tu'itonga, regardless, because this is not the white. This is where Masi and I always have this conversation. The white man is not good in interpreting our oral history, but what the white man is good at, science. Usually telling us the date, the age of certain things, that's where the white man's pretty good. So yes, when you bring your oral history that was written from the white man hearing some story from some random person, not much evidence. But when they do the carbon dating, that's pretty strong evidence from my perspective.
Yeah, good stuff. No, good stuff. It's good to get that that date because this is real fresh, and thanks to Shiriva, Maro Shiriva.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
awesome.
we're gonna skim down to just the conclusions here. So we're gonna go through the conclusions. I'll just read through it real quick.
Okay.
And then we'll go back for our Samoan brothers. And we thank you, Tui and Noah, for coming. And we want you guys, we're just gonna have these conversations. Hey, kudos to you guys for coming over. The ancestral cultures of West Polynesia gave rise to diverse Polynesian societies that encompassed archaic states and chiefdoms with different levels of stratification. As our results demonstrate, the next phase in understanding Pacific landscapes requires the critical addition of chronological data to the spatial architecture record. What we've been saying from the beginning, right, Masi? This is why ruins are important. Hey, LP, my bad, man. I've seen that question come up multiple times. LP, we'll get to it. I just don't want to lose this thread, but we'll come back and have a comment on that real quick. Maybe we'll address that before we go to the other video.
Okay.
So once again, like we've said multiple times, in order to filter out the bad oral history that people make up, and maybe they heard the real story once and they forgot and they fill in stuff, and maybe they never heard the real story in the first place, but they want people to listen to them. So they make up a story that's more entertainment value than fact value.
Yeah.
So the chronological data to the spatial architectural record to examine Polynesian settlements and the chiefdoms from the poorly understood first millennium AD through to the early European contact era. Due to the presence of fires on construction services that were subsequently sealed by layers of earth, Malay Wakapuna is currently, repeat, the best dated prehistoric structure in West Polynesia, right? Whether early architecture was made in other island groups is uncertain, but it appears likely given the difficulty in accurately dating earths and stone structures.
Nice.
So once again, it just goes into, the complexity, the structure, 1,500 years ago, what Tonga was able to accomplish, what this state says, and it says the age and size of Malay Wakapuna has implications for understanding socio-political conditions prior to the formation of the ancient Tongan state, including the likelihood that early population agglomeration propelled settlement inequality intergroup competition in the first millennium AD. The age of the Mala'i Vakapuna also indicates that by the first time that East Polynesia was colonized, approximately 1,000 years ago, well-developed chiefdoms and field monuments were already extant in West Polynesia. Right? So there we go. That's that. Masi, any kind of closing thoughts on that to summarize while I get ready for the video?
Learned something new. I had no idea there was a mound, Mala'i Vakapuna mound, that was pretty significant, and it's pretty cool to read this article just regarding their findings on it, and it explains a lot with the timeline. It just gives much more a clear view of how timeline of the whole Polynesian nation kind of
came to be.
Correct. So no, it's pretty cool. That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. So with that being said, we only got to listen. I think we'll see. We'll listen to this, watch this video, because you don't have to get too far into this video where it confirms. And if we got to watch the whole thing, we'll watch the whole thing, but I don't think we have to. But we'll see how far we get into it.
Hello, I'm Joe Plankton. I want to introduce my fellow, or the co-authors of this paper. Number one, Skeuli Temese. She's the former head of the Samoan Languages Department at the National University of Samoa, Center for Samoan Studies. I also want to, the second or the third author is Epifania, or Epi Suafua Tuwai. She was the senior lecturer of archaeology and cultural heritage at the National University. She's now the director of archaeology for both the American Samoa Port Authority and also the American Samoa and Federal Aviation Administration in American Samoa, Pango Pango. Also, the fourth co-author is Mohammed Harun Sahib. He's a lecturer in archaeology and cultural heritage at the National University of Samoa, Center for Samoan Studies. The focus of our paper is ritual and prestige in the support of the dynasty of the Tui Manua. And what's incredible about this dynasty is it covered 3 small islands, but this dynasty began sometime in the 14th, 15th century AD and continued to the early 20th century, a period of over 400 years.
Right there.
400, yeah. Within the 3 islands of Manua. Nothing kind of mentioned outside of that.
Masi, what's your response to this another white man? Come on, Tua.
Tui, he just mentioned he was working with 2 Samoan ladies, and obviously maybe the 2 Samoan ladies didn't want to do a presentation and they pushed the white guy to tell what they found. So hey, it's pretty ironic. He mentioned the 2 ladies, maybe because the white guy say, I'm not just the only white guy. The 2 Samoan ladies the 2 Samoan researchers were with him. So hey, man, so somebody, you can't blame him. He's not the only white guy doing it by himself. He's got looks like some well-known Samoan researchers along with him, too. So you got to come up with something better.
I don't know what to say. I agree with Brown Monk right here. A full bucket. Give Tui a full bucket.
Have a full bucket, kava, Tui. Do it for all of us.
and here's the interesting thing, because here's another comment right here. Tui, we already watched a Samoan PhD who said the Pulemele Mound was in the 1400s. And that's Tui Tonga timeline.
Yeah.
Right? Tuitonga is older than that. So Pulimele Mound, and actually, we watched a video with the Samoans who live in that area.
Correct.
And they say that they grew up, that was where the Tuitonga resided, was the Pulimele Mound. And they interviewed 2 locals who said that. So you're going to have to come up with a little bit more. We're not trying to be rude. We're not trying to be whatever. It's just the reality is, Tui, we're the same people. We really shouldn't be comparing, Samoa versus Tonga. We're all the same people.
Correct.
Any thoughts on that, Masi?
No, I mean, more like I said, maybe the best way, Tui, a list of your Tui Manua holders, and then giving us an explanation of where you came up with those names and associate exactly where they, where were they governing during their time of reigning as Tui Manua, because the locals, the Purimere, 2 local ladies even suggested that this was a significant area of where the Tuitonga kind of resided, and it kind of goes along with the oral history that we have, that 5 generations of Tuitonga did reside most of the time in Samoa, most likely in Savaii, because it seems like that Purimele is the oldest ruin in Samoa, kind of reigning from there, only coming back to Tonga maybe twice a year for the Inasi, where all the islands pay tribute to the Tuitonga, and also the religious practice of the Polo Polo to the old gods Hikudeo.
And here's the other funny thing, right? And this is a prime example. Is the problem with oral history? I'm just looking at some of the comments here.
Yeah.
Where the oral history said that in the Tui Manua's residence, right? And we'll just change this out real quick. In the Tui Manua Mound, there were these small piles of rocks, right? Small piles of rocks. And the oral history said, oh, the super loyal people to the Tui Manua wanted to be buried next to the Tui Manua Mound. So that's what the oral history said, right?
Correct.
Hey, you see this pile of rocks? Tui and Noah. This is the danger of just showing up with only oral history. The Samoan scholars and this gentleman from the U.S., they went and dug up these pile of rocks. You know what they found out? No bodies in there. You know what they did find? Ufi pits.
Yeah.
So this is where they cooked the ufi. And yet the oral history says, oh, the most loyal people to the Tui Manua wanted to be buried. And that's, if in those rocks, you'll find people. And we found out ufi pits. Come on. This is why we try to be, we understand oral history. We know it can bring value.
Yeah.
But it's unstable, right? There's too many different versions of the oral history. It's good to tie oral history to the physical structures and to navigate it. Any additional comments and thoughts on that, Masi?
No. I agree with that 100%. Oral history that coincide with a ruin and also a significant structure or anything gives the best evidence of describing your society or an origin of your society. Because there can be a ruin there, but if you don't really know the significance of what it could be, then it's a hard time to really understand what kind of society you were in the past. So having them both align with one another just strengthens your argument, and that's what we do here. We're strengthening our idea of Tongatapu being the center place of all of Polynesia, and we were just all one people, but the governing came from Tongatapu. And once we can establish that, then we can talk about the other parts of our culture or Polynesian empire from there. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts from there.
Yeah. I mean, and here's another interesting thing. We don't want to bore our typical users. That we have a video, and you guys can go look through it where we cover this extensively. But here's another interesting thing. The entire face of the Tui Manua's residence was a defensive structure. They even had lookouts in the corner to verify whether the ships that were coming were friendly or not. right? And if we were to take your guys' position that, the Tuitonga never went there, so who was the Tui Manua defending himself against? It sounds like he was defending himself against the other islands in Samoa from coming to him.
Probably, or Upolu, yeah.
So, once again, the oral history of predating the Tuitonga doesn't make any sense, right? Saying that the Tui Manua was the head of the entire empire. We don't even find sources of materials from throughout the empire. We find that all the material in Samoa was in Samoa. You go to Tonga, it fits what a capital of an empire would have. It has materials from throughout Eastern Polynesia, Western Polynesia. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. What are your thoughts? So I know we discussed this already, Mussy, but you know that comment that Tupou the First said that his progenitors come from Samoa. What's your initial thoughts to his position there?
Well, Tupou the First, I think we break it down to it, but we can break it down again. Tupou the First, he's a Tu'ikanupolu. Tu'ikanupolu has strong ties, especially bringing a lot of their followers from Upolu settling into Hihifo side of Tongatapu, which is the western side of Tongatapu, and all the Tu'ikanupolus all married people from Upolu. So that makes sense when he says they're the progenitors, because they're the ones who had the most children from, had most of their children come from Upolu, and I mean that explains it. But like I said, with the whole Tui Tonga and Tui Hatagalawa, a lot of them, it was always father to son, and Samoan women from Upolu and Savai gave birth to those progenitors. So, I mean, that's all I have to say with that, because at the same time, that makes sense, right? So,
I'm going to pull up something, Mussy, so you can kind of help Tui understand what exactly that you're referencing, to kind of give why the Tu'ikanukupolu would make such a claim and why that is not a strong position to take, by just kind of walking through this breakdown of the where the three kingly lines come from.
Yes. So the top four that we say is kind of 450 AD. That's the Tu'itonga being the first, right? Then the Tu'itonga institutes the second kingly title, which is the Tui Hatagalawa, which is the brother of a Tu'itonga, brother Kaufonua. And then from him, Mo'unga Tonga, which is a brother of the Tui, was it the Tui Hatagalawa brother, right? Or was it a son?
It was a brother. Oh, the son. This one is the son for the Tu'ikanukupolu. The Tui Hatagalawa was a brother of the Tu'itonga. Correct.
So the son of the Tui Hatagalawa goes and becomes the first, right? Becomes the first Tu'ikanukupolu, and then he marries a lot of high status, high rank women from Upolu, and not only that, bringing, like, we're talking about thousands of their clan and Samoans from Upolu, probably Savai, but a lot of them, majority from Upolu, coming and kind of supporting to bring more followers, because a lot of the people within Tongatapu, majority of the followers there were already under the two kingly titles that were established prior to the Tu'ikanukupolu. So in order to kind of have a strong following and to kind of perceive as what are the kingly titles, which is the lowest, came with the relatives of their newlyweds to the Tu'ikanukupolu. So and they were referred to the kind of the founding of the Tu'ikanukupolu, this title.
And as we, Mussy, and this is the thing that's really interesting, right? Kind of looking at that article that we just watched. Well, first off, let's address that. So, yes, Tupou the First, who is the Tu'ikanukupolu, right? His uncle was Area Motua, and his cousin was Ma'afu, who went to Fiji, right?
Mm.
Him saying that, yeah, makes sense. But even then, the male line was Tongan, you know, a branch off the Tuitonga, and you can say your progenitor, your mom's ancestors is a progenitor.
Correct.
And for the people that Tupou the first was representing as the Tuikana and unifying Tonga, a lot of his direct subjects, in a sense, as the Tuikana, both their mother and their father are from Samoa, right?
Yeah.
So, and he's speaking on behalf of his people. So, once again, taking one item, taking it out of context and zeroing in is not a healthy way to approach history. Here's another interesting thing. We look at the dates of the
establishment of the titles.
The establishment of the titles. This is Ka'ulfo Nua Fekai. This guy's father was Takalaua, who was assassinated.
Correct.
From all indications, this guy becomes pretty militaristic, right? I mean, he chases the assassins all the way to Wallace and Futuna. Okay? So you're looking at hundreds of miles of chasing the assassin to kill them. And then, you know, we push this back. A lot of the years are pushing things to the left. So let's say 1400s. Just in one or two of the articles we read says it goes back even further. When do a lot of these major structures in Polynesia pop up? After 1000 AD. This seems to align with the time that Ka'ulufonua goes on a military campaign.
Correct.
Throughout Polynesia. And he starts erecting structures everywhere.
Correct.
Right? And so what really seems to happen is Ka'ulufonua Fekai says, you know what? I'm going on a military campaign. I'm going to install my brother as the Tu'iha Takalaua. He stays on Tongatapu, manages thing. Ka'ulufonua Fekai he goes and uses Samoa as his primary launch point for his military campaign. He starts invading, and the Tuitonga lives in Samoa for 5 generations before returning back to Tonga. So, yeah.
No, and just to add, with Tui's question, Tupou the First said that, and then Tupou the First, he's a Tuikana title holder. And remember, like what we mentioned, his title only existed, the Tuikana 1550 is when that, you know, that's in that time frame. That's very that's a baby. So of course he's speaking on behalf on what he knows as the Tuikana title, saying the progenitors, which could be from, and that's like I said, with pretty much of Samoa, with a lot of the migration coming from Upolu and Sawai to the western side of Tongatapu. So that answers that question, Tui, just regarding your question on that.
So question, no, how could we expect that Tuitonga to be the greatest empire in the Pacific if it's only recognized by Polynesians? And if next time call it the greatest, well, we don't make a claim it's the greatest Polynesian. I mean, Pacific, we just say in Polynesia, right?
Yeah, I've always said Polynesian, yeah.
But even then, if that's true, that the Polynesian nation existed, it would have been the greatest in the Pacific, because why? Look at Melanesia. There is no continuity or consistency of language, of culture, religious, political, social structure. You don't find that anywhere in Melanesia or Micronesia. You find that in Polynesia. So when you look at Polynesia as a singular nation, yes, it is the greatest in the Pacific, but we don't claim that the Polynesian Empire went into Melanesia and Micronesia.
Correct.
It was within the Polynesian Triangle or the Stingray. So not sure what exactly that is. Masi, what are kind of your thoughts to this position that we kind of hear of the language? And what are your thoughts on using just a linguistical tie to determine origin?
Well, language kind of stems where the origin, and I've stated, if the language of our ancestors back in the days of ancient Polynesia had to be more likely like a Tongan way of speaking, it can't be the other ones, because one, they're newer, right? Newer to the game. So obviously there was a language established before the whole colonizing of islands, and obviously that's my position. regarding that, the Samoanic outliers, that could be just people who just have a Samoan tone just later on. That doesn't mean that they're the origin, right? That doesn't mean that they're the origin of Polynesia. So to me, that's not a strong approach linguistically to say that you're the origin just because some people speak with a Samoan tone from other islands. That's not a good way to suggest that they're the origin, because we're talking about who's the origin of Polynesia and where was it centered with the Polynesian Empire, with the Tuitonga Empire too. So I mean, yeah, that's kind of my position on that. Do if you have any addition
No,
or any
I
feedback that
think
I'm missing?
no, I think that covers it. In addition to this, Tonga was the oldest. Then why can't Samoan language? It does sound like Tongan in a lot of different ways. But here's the other challenge as well: is Tonga was the only part of and we'll say our civilization that maintained independence.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
The Tongan language, the Tongan constitution was written into the language, maintained independence. One could make the argument that the rest of Polynesia could have had infiltration or lost. Because when we look at William Mariner's book off of our buddy I saw earlier, didn't get to his comment, but Kawa University, when the Hawaiians came to Tonga, they spoke to each other and it was the same language.
Literally
they were
just
speaking
come off
to
the
each
boat.
other. The Tahitians were speaking to the Tongans, no issue in understanding each other. However, post-colonization, all of a sudden things change. So
and we're talking about 1800 when things started changing. And that's still early. So yeah, I mean I think that's a big reason. Good point, Tua, you brought up. Colonization has probably tainted a lot of the Polynesian language within the Polynesian Empire under the Tuitonga rule. But Tonga, we can safe say, is probably that's another reason why Tonga is probably the closest language. We were the only ones that never been colonized, so obviously our language didn't change as much. Tonga's language has changed till now because obviously we live in a different environment. We have different new technologies, and we're just adapting with our environment. But it's probably not as tainted as our Pacific Polynesian brothers in the other islands. But yeah,
not 100%. I mean, good points here from Siriva, right? The Tongan, the Polynesian triangle span from Hawaii, Tahiti, Easter Island, New Zealand, and in between. He corrects it. Yep. 10 million square miles, right? Larger than North and South America combined. I mean, massive. Granted, a lot of it is water, right? Correct. But a massive nation. I mean, I see it as a unified nation. That's what we are.
Yeah.
That's why Polynesia, we all have the same word for kava, right? Correct. That's why we all use a similar language. That's why we all have the tui, right? Tui manua, tui, like that. We have so much, the navigational knowledge, so much in common.
No, and just to add on, and that's why we remember important figures. Tangaloa and Maui is consistent throughout all of Polynesia because those are pretty much important figures in creating the Polynesian Empire, Polynesian nation. So obviously, that's maintained throughout our history. So it was a unified Polynesians led by Tangaloa and the Tuitonga.
Yep. Well, I know we've rehashed stuff, but it looks like we have to. We don't have any issue doing it. But these are important. We got to have these conversations. We all got to get on the same page. And once again, I really just want to reiterate, same people, same nation, same knowledge. It just, unfortunately, through colonization, and it even sounds like even before colonization, the empire was kind of collapsing under its own weight. Because the Tuitongas, just like they were human beings, just like everybody else, kind of got a little bit too relaxed, maybe with their power. And the empire was struggling a little bit around the time that the colonizers were coming, and then they took advantage of that.
Correct.
But kind of any additional comments, see if there are any more questions that pop up. But here's like Teke is saying right here. Tonga has way too many archaeological and scientific evidence to prove all. This is mind-blowing that people choose. Yeah.
Hey, that happens.
And it happens.
That happens.
Yeah.
Hey, all we can do is just present, let the people choose. But, for those that can logically put things together like a puzzle, hey, it just provides our idea that we were under a Polynesian empire led by the Tui Tonga.
Yeah.
Created by Tangaloa, led by the Tui Tonga.
Yeah.
Right.
And I want to do this. Let's do this, because what I want to do is end with this video. This is a prime example of why we need to have these conversations. Not 100% brown monk. We think so, right? I mean, we're all, the fact that our nation, Polynesian nation, was able to survive and keep intact our culture and to survive full colonization is a big deal. And it should be celebrated by all of us.
And I was just thinking like if Tonga was able to lose its sovereignty, man, I don't know if we'll be able to have this history that we're able to share to the rest of Polynesia, because who knows what would have happened. So it's crazy. I think there is a reason why Tonga was saved, and a reason to kind of unite Polynesia, that what we were and what we can do when we're unified as a whole Polynesian nation. It's pretty remarkable. But
no, 100%. And I want to find, here's the video right here. This is what we're trying to avoid, right? Because this is where a lot of the confusion comes from. And we're going to show this video real quick. Let's go to present. Stop this. Let's go to this one. Okay. This is where a lot of our confusion comes from, right? We're going to listen to this. Now just compare what we just discussed today versus what we're going to see here. Right? Let's just kind of see what the counter argument is to the archaeological, historical ruin, scientific studies combined with oral history, right? Let's see what the opposite position is.
Samoa, as we know it, comprises itself of Savaii, Upolu, Tutuila, and the Manua Islands, and these comprise themselves of Ofu, Olosega, and Ta'u. Now, when it comes to this question, we need to first establish the Manua. Samoa, as we know it, comprises itself of Savaii, Upolu, Tutuila, and the Manua Islands, and these comprise themselves of Ofu, Olosega, and Ta'u. Now, when it comes to this question, we need to first establish the Manua Tele, the Great Manua, an empire of the Pacific that stems from the Manua Islands. The ruler of such empire is known as the Tui Manua, and they come from the Tangaloa clan, which lives and resides in the Manua Island.
What's your first response to that statement right there, Masi? Tangaloa, coming from Tangaloa and Tangaloa.
Yeah. You obviously, this guy's going off of oral history, right? And he's just kind of writing it down for people to see. But we all know that Tangaloa is a person or a title that resided in Tonga Tapu, Tonga Eiki. So obviously that doesn't make sense, because there's no one. They dwelled in Langi, right? And Langi is a place of where Tangaloa and the Tui Tongas reside. We've already went through some research. There's no Langi there, right? So Tangaloa cannot be from Manua. So if they can't be from Manua, there's no Tui Manua that came from there. So that would be my explanation. But how about you? What
Yeah,
what do you
I mean,
what do you
just
have?
looking at what we just looked at, science says Tui Manua is only 400 years old.
Correct.
Right? And we know that the Tui Tonga descended from a Tangaloa, and the Tui Tonga is older than the Tui Manua.
Yes.
Okay. Now, here is where there's some validity. We can give some legitimacy to this claim, right? If the Tu'imanua descends from the Tu'itonga,
yeah,
and the Tu'itonga is from Tangaloa, can the Tu'imanua say I descend from Tangaloa? Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
But it doesn't mean you're older than the Tu'itonga. And it doesn't mean that Tangaloa comes from Manua.
Correct.
So this is how you navigate the oral history.
Yes.
Right? Because if Tu'imanua is only 400 years old,
correct.
How can, and it's not older than the Tu'itonga, how can we do that? It doesn't make sense. So once we have the dating from science, we can say, well, the oral history has something to it.
Correct.
Right? So we can say, oh, so maybe it's actually the Tu'imanua, and we've heard this and seen this in other oral history in Tonga, that sometimes the brother of the Tu'itonga come from different parents, different mothers, and another brother who is quote unquote a firstborn,
correct,
kind of holds a special place, right? But doesn't inherit the title of Tu'itonga. So it could be that Tu'imanua could have come from such a situation,
yes,
and went to Ta'u, and the Tu'itonga recognizes that close family tie and says, we respect the Tu'imanua as a brother, so we're not going to go bother him, but we're going to go about our business in other areas. And this is well documented in Tongan culture and history. When a high chief respects someone that's not necessarily higher than him, he doesn't go and put taxes on him. He doesn't go and expect tribute from him. He allows them to live in peace.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So, yeah. So, anyway, so that we'll start with that.
Yep.
At this time that we're talking about. Now, we need to fast forward from not the inception, but the decline of this empire. So we fast forward to Tangaloa Etu Matupua. This man comes from the Tangaloa clan. He comes from Manua. In Tonga, they say that he comes from Langi. Now, in Tongan poetry, Langi means the heavens, which is what they say that he's from the heavens. Now, that's a poetic way of referring to.
Was it the Tongans who said he comes from the heavens, or was it a Palangi interpretation of what the Tongans said, Masi?
What I understand is what the Palangis have said what Langi came from, right? So obviously he's using oral history, and this is the thing about, and this is what thing is good about ruins. You decipher which oral history correlate to the actual narrative that actually happened. Like, because what you said, if everyone has their oral history, but not every oral history is correct, right? Because there's some deficiencies, major deficiencies. So obviously we can't. That's kind of the argument here, but yeah.
So the Tu'itonga Masi lives on Alangi. So is the Tu'itonga from the heavens? Right?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe in the dreams. Maybe in the dreams. Maybe in the dreams. Yeah.
So once again, this quote unquote poetry interpretation, to use what Tui said earlier, come on, man, that's a white man's interpretation. Of the word, right? So you see how when you just go with the oral history, you just start making La La Land.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You just start making La La Land. Things get crazy. So we'll continue with that. We'll continue
to Samoa. Mama, which refers to the earth, is a poetic way of referring to Tonga. Pulotu, ancestral homelands, is what they refer to as Fiji.
Okay. Pulotu Masi, ancestral homeland. Does that sound right to Tongan oral history?
No. See, Tongan's oral history with Pulotu is a spiritual realm. It's a spiritual place where the dead go and dwell. That's what Pulotu is reference to. I don't know.
So
the ancestral land, maybe you can say ancestral dwelling place, because obviously that's where they go.
Yes,
and dwell
your ancestors live when they die.
Yes, it's not where you come from. It's the afterlife. So yeah, mama being that's earth, but yeah, that's all I have to say regarding that. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. two uncles sitting in the garage drinking kava, talking about poetry, and all of a sudden the Tui Manua Empire.
Hey, and that's the thing, right? Tui, we asked you to bring a list, and then hopefully you can come and explain, because we already have a list, and this is the first time ever Tui Polotu has a list of Tui Polotu titles. But like I said, we're still working on trying to get that person to come and explain his list. It's we're still trying our very best. You know, this is a night gig and stuff, but we're trying our best to get him to explain.
Yeah.
So once you get your Tui Manua list that suggests that is even doesn't have to predate. Get it to equivalent to the Tui Tonga list and also timeline. And if you can explain it, then we'll go from there. But you know,
hey, I mean, and we try to bring to our listeners, we try to bring the breaking news of the first Tui Pulotu list. And guys, hundreds of names almost, hundreds of names.
Yeah.
Like, but I now understand why, because Pulotu goes all the way to ancestors. I think this guy's list went to Adam and Eve.
Okay. Hey. You know, it's a good. Then he gave the true definition, because it goes back to the dead. It goes back to the dead.
All the way back.
Oh, okay.
So once again, it's I don't know how to react sometimes when I hear our Samoan brothers and sisters say, "What's your evidence? What's your evidence? Bring this, bring that. Look at this, look at that." And then I'm like, "Oh, your uncle told your buddy about Langi Mama and Pulotu, and that's where the Tui Manua story comes from." And yet, we're the ones that are not being respectful. We're the ones not being fair and objective. All right, let's continue.
So when they say that he comes from Langi, he's coming from Samoa. Now, just because you're
there we go, coming from Samoa, but the archaeological evidence for Samoa is only at best 1000 AD and later.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If we had to choose, right? If we had to choose, let's just say if we had the choice to go by, can only choose one data point to go by, either the ruins or the what? The oral story or the oral history. I think everyone will be real. The ruins is much more safer to kind of discover our true history of Polynesia than the oral stories, because we all know what is the flaws of oral story. One generation to the another, you lose a significant part of the true meaning of that history, because it's very, very difficult to maintain oral history in its, let's just say, authentic form. Yes, it is an authentic form.
Yeah, because this
is still there. The ruin is still there. It's still sitting in Mua. It's still in Toloa. It's still in Haveluliku. Still in Fuamotu with what I learned with the Malae Vakapuna Mound. It's still there, right? And it didn't change. Human interpretation did not change that. It's still there, created by humans, and it's been there for many thousands of years. So go with the ruins, my people. Go with the ruins.
No, and this is a great point, Tui. I mean, Tui seems to take a different position than this brother here. But I agree. It does. You know, let me put it this way. At least this guy here is putting out content and saying, this is what I believe. True. I can respect that, right? Well, I don't want to come across as saying, oh, no, we're saying, you know, put the idea. He put the idea out. He can get on and look at our videos, right? Respond and react to our videos like we're doing to his. Let the ideas battle. And then everyone sitting around the kava bowl can decide what you want to believe or not. But that just goes to show, Tui, what's the challenge with oral history. He's going off of oral history. You're coming off of oral history. You know, we watched the Tapu Tapu Atea. The Tahitians say they are the center of Polynesia. But once again, center of Polynesia, but their maraes are 1000 AD and after.
Yeah.
You know? So what is it? Did the Samoans come from Tahiti? Then we have the Fiji who say we come from them, and yet Fiji was never unified as a nation before colonization. They don't have consistency in using the same political structure, linguistical structure, social structure as we do in Polynesia. That's where we come from. That's where the civilization doesn't make sense.
Mm.
That so we can't come from everywhere, because if we
Yeah.
come from everywhere, we come from nowhere.
Correct. Correct.
So yeah, let's move on. Let's give our brother here our full attention.
You're part of the clan does not mean you gain the title. Only the heads of the clan will gain the Tangaloa name. So he's the head of this clan. So he is a highborn within this society. This Samoan highborn actually marries into the powers of Tonga. He marries a woman named Ilaheva Vaipupua. Ilaheva of Vaipupua. This is the village that she's from. She's a Tongan highborn. Now, there's Samoan and Tongan lineages. There's Tongan and Samoan powers. Actually gives birth to an offspring known as Ahoitu, Asoaitu in Samoan. And from his birth, the ruling power of the Tui Manua is now transferred over to him. And because of his mother, he has gained the Tui.
Any thoughts on that, Masi? My initial thought is he saying that the Tui Manua is Tangaloa?
That's what it seems. That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. Because right, what's the oral history in Tonga that it was Tangaloa, then transitioned to the Tui Tonga. So
Correct.
obviously, he's saying that the Tui Manua came. Yeah, see, that's confusing. He's saying that Tui Manua is Etu Matupua that's had a marriage with Ilaiheva, and then producing the first Tui Tonga Ahoetu. But
who's the Tui Manua then?
Yeah, yeah. I don't see, and that's the thing with oral history. When you go by that, there's big gaps, and it doesn't make sense because chronologically, if we go by the ruins, right, the Tui Tonga, right, and then before that, it's the Tangaloa. If you go in that timeline, that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense when we got from evidence Manua does not predate just even the Tui Tonga. So obviously, I don't know. I don't know how this person is playing, but it makes sense. See, and that's the thing. You can make a history based off oral history because if that's the only data point that you're going off.
Yeah, and that's why oral history alone is not enough. And the question is begged. So what happened to the Tangaloa title? Why doesn't it exist today? Because if he's saying it was only the Tui Manua title changed from Tui Manua to Tui Tonga, what happened to the Tangaloa title? Where is that? Right? But the Tongan oral history says, no, for whatever reason, Etu Matupua, right? The last Tangaloa ended the Tangaloa line and said the Tui Tonga replaces the Tangaloa line. Just like the last Tui Tonga ended the Tui Tonga line.
And changed his name.
And changed it. Changed the name of the title after him. He said, he literally told Tupou the First, this title ends with me. Here's your Taumafakava. This is what will legitimize your leadership to continue our nation and civilization forward. Right? Very different. We have oral history, historical history, documented history that a lot of this stuff just doesn't seem to add up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tonga title. There are many Tui Tongas before him, but he is the most important one.
See,
where does that come from?
I don't know.
So
the oral history, his own oral history from Manua.
Yeah. And wait a second. There's many Tui Tongas before him. See, but this is where they mix, because if I understand correctly, Masi, in Samoan culture, the woman can inherit the title.
Correct.
In Tongan culture, that's not how it functions. The only real exception was Queen Salote, and she was teetering on losing power, which is why she married into the Tuiha Takalaua to reinforce the relationship and to bring those histories, those two lines together.
Yeah. From my understanding, there could have been Tuikanu Polu that was a female that was held very shortly. But remember, now we know that the Tuikanu Polu is a what? Is an election system.
Yeah.
Right?
Based off the Samoan system.
Based off the Samoan, because a lot of their, let's just say, their followers were from Upolu and Savai, and they had a different thing that they were used to doing back there that they were influencing on how the Tui Polu should elect their title holders. But since we're talking with the Tui Tonga, that's impossible because it's always been father to son for thousands of years to the Tui Karugu, to the even to the Tui Hatagalawa, and until that was
Father to
changed
son.
with the yes.
And
It was
that's what
changed with the
we
Tui
say
Karugu
was the
Polu.
same for the Tangaloa title, right? Tangaloa is not a god. It was a
Correct.
title, and it was father to son, which is why Aho Etu became the first Tui Tonga and inherited the power
That
of
title,
the
yes.
Tangaloa title. Now, this is where we say Tonga was fortunate as the capital of the Polynesian nation. A lot of the ideas flowed into Tonga, and this is where some of the ideas that were developed in Samoa was critical in allowing Tonga to stay independent
to what we have now. Correct.
to what we have now, because that structure, kind of like that Matai system that developed,
yes,
that is how Tupou the First was able to consolidate power. If that idea did not penetrate into Tonga, it seems very difficult to see how Tonga would have been able to survive colonization, because that's how Tupou the First was able to consolidate power to unite Tonga. If there was no Tu'ikanuku and no election process like it's done in Samoa, that idea, Tupou the First wouldn't have been able to unite Tonga from what we can see, and therefore probably Tonga would have fallen to colonization. But thankfully for that, and also Tupou the First, handing over Tonga and the people of Tonga to God for protection, Tonga survived through that. But so once again, this is why we say all of Polynesia should be proud that Tonga endured, because it is the collective knowledge and experience of the Polynesian nation as a whole over thousands of years that allowed Tonga to survive. And so it's really a win for everyone at the table.
Correct.
Right now, for this starts a new dynasty for not only the Tongans, but the Samoans. Now, because of this double lineage, he now rules the old lands of Manua that Manua still held onto in its decline. So he rules not only Tonga, but now he rules these islands, Savai'i, Upolu, and Tutuila. The Manua Islands remain sacred even during his reign and future reigns after him. For Manua still remains Motusa, still remains sacred land, still remains the land of the gods. This is how Samoa.
And this is, I don't know how to respond. I mean, Samoa, Ha'amoa, it was never sacred. It was clan. I don't know where the Sa comes from, how that changed over time. Do you have any knowledge on how it went from Ha'amoa to Samoa, Masi, and how that whole interpretation of Sa for sacred?
I don't know where that came from, because they always say that it was the sacred center. If you look at it on the map, it's more center, so maybe that's why they say center. But Sa, I don't know why they say they interpreted Sa as sacred. It's more clan of Moa. The Tongan definition of Samoa with Ha'amoa is the more correct form, because even in the old text of the early Europeans come to Tonga, they always refer to Ha'amoa. They not even once they heard of Samoa even mentioned. And I think Samoa as a term was only created with the colonization. I feel like that's as making them as a nation kind of thing. But the correct term is more the Tongan definition of being that kind of Moa.
And like you were saying, Masi, Ha'amoa in Tongan, it's the Moa clan, the rooster, or the chicken. And you mentioned what's the Manua's flag?
The flag has a Moa, just a chicken, just a regular chicken.
Yeah.
In its flag. And I think that's whoever Manuan created that obviously knew
the oral history
with that word of the Ha'amoa being a clan that was significant to the islands.
So here's my question. If Sa means sacred and Moa means center, then why does the head of the quote unquote Samoa put a chicken?
Correct.
Right? Just think about that. you have to build a pretty far bridge to go from straight Ha'amoa to Sacred Center.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying, when you just look at what's right in front of you, the Manua people are telling you they're the Ha'amoa.
Yeah.
You know? Anyways.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Interesting. But now that we know with these ruins, it's interesting. Savaii in all of Samoa seems to be the oldest. So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting, man.
No, and I mean, and that seems to
I've always held the idea that Manua had the potentially to be the oldest, but obviously it looks like Savaii was a critical place that it seems like a lot of the maybe governance within that Samoan regional thing was done from Savaii.
Yeah. And
Manua was left alone, kind of like what you mentioned earlier, for some respectful reason.
No, 100%. 100%.
Falls into quote unquote Tongan hands. But he is a benevolent ruler. He's generous and he's giving. He's a good ruler for Samoans and for Tongans. However, 15 lines later, 15 tuitongas later, we have tuitonga talakaifaiki, talafei or talaaifei in Samoan.
All right. We'll pause there real quick. And let's see how many tuitongas there actually are.
Yeah. No, and you know when he said that there was other tuitongas before Aho Eitu, because I know some of the Palangi list, I think the Catholics and Shirley Bakers, don't they have like some other guys even before, which is incorrect?
Yes.
I think they have like Momo or something, but Momo and them are more the founders of, they weren't the title holders of the Tuitonga. They were more the founders of the Polynesian nation kind of thing, right? The first settlers.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, it's Baker's list. Baker has Kohai Koau.
Yeah, which is not even part of the Tuitonga.
So is that the list he's going off by? This person explain his theory.
Yeah, see, but here's the problem. According to Tongan oral history, it's this. Oh, I'm not on the. Sorry, I need to put my. Let me zoom in a little bit. According to Tongan oral history, this is the Talakaifaiki.
Number 33, correct.
Number 33.
It has the scuffle in Samoa. Yeah.
And Talafapite. Yeah. And Ma'akatoa, meaning they rearranged, they changed how the cultural presentations
ceremonial
were done, right? Because of the events in Samoa, in Ha'amoa, that they made that change. Right? So, and he says 15. I don't know what list he's going off because the 15th over here is Momo. And so he's going off. If he uses the Catholic list,
he's
which
using
is the
Catholic...
most least accurate out of all the lists.
Correct. Okay, yeah. See, that's the timeline he's going by, eh?
Yeah. But here's the problem. He's going off and he's not even going. Let's see if this guy has another Talakaifaiki, because this is the first Talakaifaiki, right? Like this Talakaifaiki that we're talking about is the third.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he just jumps in, interprets that this is the one when there's multiple Talakaifaikis. So once again, incomplete oral history, only on oral history, problems all over the place.
And incorrect chronological order of the Tuitonga list too. He's going off by.
Yeah. So just wanted to pull that up. We'll come back to the video because this is our concluding video for the evening.
When it came to Tuitonga Talakaifaiki, he made the Samoans slaves under him, building roads to his palaces, building roads to his temples.
Building the Purimere.
Is when
well, and that's the thing. Where are these palaces and these roads? Are we saying it's the Pulemele? Maybe, but we think it's not the case because we think it's Kaulfonofekai. But
yeah,
could have been all his pigeon, his star mounds that he wanted to to
play his
hunt,
game
you
or
know,
catch. Yeah.
force them to go to Manono Island and build 70 or 60 mounds over there for him to have fun. You know, I'm just saying.
Samoans were enslaved. He was also a cannibal, for there was a day known as Efai Mayaso Letupu, the day that we tend to the king, where he would eat a person. Then he would make the.
Have you heard that? I've never heard that before. But looking at Homeboy's track record, I'm not as convinced.
Yeah, yes. I wouldn't take much of it. You know.
Hey, Tui, I can see why I think you shared earlier that you're not a fan. Not a fan of this video.
The enslaved Samoans dig a giant pit so that he can throw the bones of who he's eaten into them. All of this, his terrible ruling of the Samoan people, which he even stems lineage to, got him exiled by Tuna and Fata and Salveo. That's where we get this story of Tuna and Fata. These two brothers were so well renowned in Samoa for their bravery and their work. They were incredible warriors, and they hatched a plan. On the king's birthday, his celebration at the Malai of Alepata, the field of Alepata, they will ambush the king and the Tongans. So hiding their weapons within the festivities, they waited for a cue. And that cue was the song Matamatsame, a dance. And when this song played a couple notes, they exploded from where they hid. The weapons that they've hidden within the festivities were exposed, and 200 Tongans were slain immediately, and the Tongan king was now on the run.
I like that.
As he fled, the Tongans fell one by one.
I like that. You know what? He has good narrative skills.
Yeah.
I like the king running for his life, dotted line, Marie.
Slain as they traveled through the islands. Now, the plan was that they were going to end the king and take the fight all the way to Tonga and exact their revenge on the people. However, the Tongan king did something incredible. Instead of fleeing on his canoes, as his men were already boarding them, he stood upon a rock at the harbor and waited. As the Samoan warriors came to him, he spoke these words. Malietoa, Malietau. Awhai toe o mai tonga, e sau I le auli uli fo lau. Ai le sau I le auli uli tau. Great warriors, great fighters. If Tonga ever were to come, it would come as a friendly visit. Never will we come again in war. From these words, everything before was squashed. The blood that was spilt on this day in this battle ran over all of the sins and was forgiven. The Tongan dead were.
All right, Masi. You just enslaved me, killed me, below me, and all you had to say was, good fight, buddy. Good fight. We're friends now. I forgive you. What are your thoughts so far on the narrative?
Well, this is the thing, right? Oral history could have been passed down to those that just took it upon them and then probably added a few more things to, suggest that it was a bloody battle. Maybe it was a good little tug and tumble, because obviously this event, Tonga, right? Doesn't Kau'ufunua still come back?
That's later. That's later.
Comes back later. And obviously 5 generations end up living there. So obviously this battle didn't seem to be, it was significant. I would say to this, it was significant enough, this little scuffle, that obviously it changes the Tongan ceremonial of the kava ceremony of presenting gifts of pigs, but it wasn't significant in this bloody situation that it avoided 5 Tuitongas living in Samoa. So later on in the list, Kau'ufunua Fekai actually moves his residence to Samoa, but obviously burial and the two the Inasi and the Polo Polo was done in Tongatapu, but they mostly lived their lives with 5 generations in Samoa.
Yeah,
between Upolu and Savai.
So this is Talakai Faiki, right?
Yes, that gives the name Maria Toa.
The
Correct.
Maria Toa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tuitongas away is Kaulfo Nuafekai.
Yes, that moves. It lives in Samoa. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He lives in Samoa and goes on a military
raid.
campaign.
Seems, yeah, that's what it seems like.
Right? And so all indications could have built the Pulemele Mound because around that time frame, you start to see military forts popping
throughout
up throughout Polynesia.
Yeah.
And like you said, he and 1, 2, 3, 4. So
correct.
With him, 5 live in Samoa, but then Tapuosi comes back at the end of his life to Tonga. And then the Tonga returns.
Correct.
There. So once again, it's kind of interesting. You hate this guy so much and you're going to kill him, but then his words make one of the greatest titles in Samoa or Ha'amoa.
Yeah. Ha'amoa. No, and that's the thing. A story I do know, it's a family story too with Tapu Osi. One of the names our family use when we do the kawa ceremony is Talaki Ha'amoa. That's a reference. That's a reference when during the time of Tapu Osi, when he was still residing, his daughter was being sent to Tonga Tapu for, I don't know if the mother was in Tonga, but she had to go to Tonga Tapu for something. And then on that trip, back to Tonga Tapu, the daughter of the Tui Tonga passes away. The attendees that was kind of courting, not courting, but like kind of attending with her to kind of take her back, tells the other guys Talagi Ha'amoa to tell the Tui Tonga his daughter has passed away, and that name has been passed down to us regarding that story. And that's just another evidence of our connection of the Tui Tonga still living in Samoa after this Talagai Faiki kind of event or scuffle. I kind of call it a scuffle because it can't be too bad if Talagai Faiki just went back there and then 5 generations still lived there.
No,
so
and then this is the thing. If the idea was, here's the funny thing, right? Who were we talking to? Orator, I think was his name. He said that Tuna and Fata couldn't even unite Samoa. They were fighting with each other, and then Savea ended up being Marietoa.
Yeah. A relative of his, right? A sibling that wasn't part of the
a younger
whole
sibling
chasing the Tui Tonga away.
So how is it you were going to campaign to Tonga, but you couldn't? Once again, you couldn't unite Samoa, and you're going to campaign to Tonga?
Correct.
That don't make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
No. That's why I thought I would just share that story within our family history of why we use that Matapure name in our kawa ceremony. It's reference just to share that obviously the Tui Tonga was still living in Samoa even after that whole kind of big bloody battle. But obviously it was a little scuffle.
In your time in Ha'amoa, did that storyline that he shared kind of fit the storyline for Tuna and Fata and what they share there?
Yes, and the story of the Mata Mata Me being like a story they would perform, and then after they sing the songs, and obviously I've heard stories of they would also not only on the birthday they would let the Tongans, from what I've heard from some Samoans share, drink also kava on top of that to try to defend themselves, drink a lot of kava, and then eating, and then doing then being surprised attack too. So obviously, it was, to me, it could have been like a good little get you back because maybe they had another scuffle before that or something, because obviously it's a big deal, and that's what right, and that's what oral history does. It always has truth, but you can always add stuff to it to make it more exciting, cool, and then you create some movement of dance,
more memorable.
There's also videos of some Samoan villages kind of recreating this event, and they sing the song, the mata mata me ka de konga ka wase, meaning dance this way, and then hit a Tongan, you hit him dead, but then hit a Samoan, hit him like se is kind of like hey, like you miss him, kind of like a thing. So this is the thing with oral stories. Like I said, every generation it gets a little bit away from
entertainment value.
And stick like I said, my viewers, stick to the ruins. Stick to the ruins.
and didn't the Sa originate from this? right? They started the saw
That's
because they were worried. Even after Talakai Faiki said, "I'm not gonna come back and attack you guys," I
Yes.
actually maybe he was like, "Man, it's about time. I was testing my luck, doing whatever I wanted. It's about time you guys stand up."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. We got a couple more minutes here to finish off. Entertaining. I like the entertainment. He's presenting it really well. Once again, entertainment value, historical fact, maybe a little bit questioning, right? So
laid at that Malai of Alepata. And that Malai was known as Malai La, the field of the sun. And they spread out the Tongan bodies to bask in the sun. And that Tongan king left to Tonga. And his descendants to this day hold this promise that he gave to the Samoans. And from these words specifically,
what happened to Talakai Faiki and everyone else?
Yeah. Yeah, what happened to Kaulfonua going back there? Because obviously he that's why it could be like I'm just thinking it could have been one of those things too. Remember the battle of Velata between Laufiri Tonga and
the Catholic
Taufa'ahau?
saying he never lost, and the Methodist saying Taufa'ahau won. So they both won. They both won apparently.
And it could have been and you know what's so funny? I even asked Tevita Fare about that thing. He said it was just a good little scuffle kind of thing, and it
brotherly love.
Brotherly love, and brotherly love can sometimes somebody be unconscious or maybe even dead, right? That's still brotherly love. Just back in those days, because even playing games and fun, people still died, right? And then today's standards, we're like, dude, that's not fun. That's a bloody war, right? So, you know what I mean.
Yeah, they just like we just need a song to sing and a dance to do with Mata Mata Me.
Maliator, King the Maliator title, the Maliator dynasty of Samoan rule. And it is said that
Maliator dynasty of what in the world is that? So, well, at least the Maliator is probably a little bit more backed by objective history than the Tu'imanua, at least.
Yes, yeah. At least let's just say this. At least we have a timeline of a Maliator, right? that's all we can say, because we can put it together. Okay, we know that this happened during Talakai Faiki and maybe right between the Talakai Faiki and Kau'ufonua Fekai. So the Maliator is between there, and then we can go from there. So at least there's a timeline.
Yeah,
we can say that.
Okay, all right, all right. Ma, that's something, right? Not thousands of years, but it's something. Correct. and it's verifiable.
Fata gave this title to their eldest brother Salvea, and he became the first Maliator Salvea. And
even that oral history, we've heard different oral history, right? Tuna and Fata fought, neither one could get the upper hand. Then Salvea came over and took over. That's another oral history we've been told by other Samoans.
Correct.
So once again, it's all political, right? It's all political.
This rock that he stood upon and he gave this incredible speech is known as Tulatala. This is the story of a relationship between two people, two different identities, and how things ended up, how they are at peace today. This is also a story of how Samoa ends up losing their rule over their land under great tyranny, but still came up.
Sole, we should have submitted this to Game of Thrones, man. Actually, on a little bit of a more serious note, we did an interview with Tox Fale, and it would be awesome. I would be all over it if WWE, right?
Let's do it
with the Usos and Roman Reigns, right, and the Bloodline, and then with Tangaloa and Tamatonga being signed, dude. This would be a cool rivalry to have on WWE. I would be entertained by that, but I would.
No.
Go ahead, Masi.
No, and it would be another form of just telling a story that that this little scuffle happened, and then to me, just that would create so much entertainment. It's like, why do we have to listen to you? We're older people, and then just create a new bloodline, because it's always about the bloodline with the Usos. But hey, that would be an awesome story that would be cool in WWE. That would happen.
No,
Two
and this
brotherly
Tevita here brings up a good point, right? Tui Tonga was ambushed by his own people. That's why he told them Malietoa, Malietao. Those were Tongan words. Pata and Tunga were able to walk around like free men. Well, and that's the thing, right? The thing is, we were all one people. We just lived on different islands. It's like different villages. The Tui Tonga was assassinated in Tonga.
Correct.
So, like he's saying, we're all the same people.
No, just to add to Tevita's point. Remember Finau Ulukalala that had the Hawaiians that were with him, and then the Tongan was just climbing up to the boat, and he told the Hawaiian, shoot that guy, even though the cook, he was Tongan. Obviously, Finau Ulukalala didn't see it as a Tongan Hawaiian telling the Hawaiian to kill another fellow Tongan. He just saw it as another Tongan. Everyone was under like Tongan or Polynesia. He was no different. He didn't see a separation of different identities, and told the Hawaiian to shoot the Tongan,
shoot the Tongan guy.
And it was like nothing, and he just laughed, and he was like, hey, it's just a normal. So just to add to that point, we're all one people.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's let the Island Game of Thrones get through this.
Resilient and free of this tyrannical rule. This is a story for Samoa.
Sale malo
lava fasoa malo.
Hey,
Samoa.
I don't know where. Oh, is it this sound coming here? Let's take that offline. Hey, looks like the video. I don't know. Can you hear that, Masi?
No.
Oh, I'm hearing. Oh, I see.
Are you hearing? Maybe it's just coming to you, because I don't hear anything. I just hear your voice.
Sorry, there's video in the background that was playing. Well, all right. I think we've went a little bit longer than anticipated. We didn't think we're gonna go through the Tui Manua discussion there, but for our brothers, Tui and Noah, I think it would have add value to them. So we walked through it. Any closing thoughts, Masi? Appreciate your time joining us and running through the show. But any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you, Tua, for creating this platform. I think it's very important in being a part of understanding our very complex history, just because we have been, different, the whole colonization, and it's very, very difficult to kind of bring us together. But this is just one piece, and why I feel like Tonga's contribution to the greater Polynesian history is to uncover the true history. But thank you for creating this platform that we can all kind of partake in. Thank you to the viewers for the contribution and just sharing our content and probably with your interactions with everybody, because everyone who kind of views us is somebody wanting more to understand our true history. And thank you to the viewers and everyone that has any questions. And Ofatu, thank you very much, Tua. That's all I have to say. Oh, and another one, what's his name? Who's the guy that shared that? Siriva. Thank you for sharing that article. I even learned some new mounds that I wasn't aware of, and it's pretty cool. The reason why I didn't know, because that article, that's fresh off the press kind of thing, came out this year. So that was good learning for me today too.
Not 100%. Appreciate our Uso brothers joining us. This is, honestly, at the end of the day, like Tuna Fata and Talakai Faiki, brotherly love. Yeah, we can smack each other around, laugh, nothing personal. We are all one people. We just want to get aligned. We just want to, have these conversations. It adds value to us as individuals. I think it adds value to the future generations. And I think we owe it to our ancestors to get aligned as descendants of the great Polynesian nation. Really, once I repeat what Masi said, really appreciate the support. Honestly, I think, Masi, this is well beyond our expectations when we started.
Correct.
This was for the love of the game. We told each other, you know, at the very least, put a history together, some videos for, you know, Fale's descendants in the future, and also just have some good conversations. This is what we do when we are able to be together. We're spread across the entire world, and we're just grateful and excited that you guys find value in the videos. Once again, really appreciate it. And as always, be curious and ask the hard questions. Till next time,
sir.
Peace.
See ya.
See ya.